Hello and welcome to the Stream of Chaos. My name is Dave and I will be your Keeper of Arcane Lore for this session of Call of Cthulhu. Today we are continuing our playthrough of the second scenario contained within Regency Cthulhu, and you can get your own copy of this tome over at chaosium.com. You can find all of our VODs collected over on the Chaosium YouTube channel, where you can also find, as of Monday, all of the Graveyards of Arkham streams and everything else that we've done there, all collected handily and neat little playlists and things like that. If you are watching there and you want to join us live, we do stream each Friday on Twitch at, presently, it is 4 p.m. Pacific. But as we go in and out of daylight savings, that does tend to change. So check the Twitch schedule and know that we do pin it to 10 a.m. Australian Eastern. That's Melbourne or Sydney time. I want to give a brief thank you to Roll20 and Sirenscape for being tools to use to improve our game. And before we jump into the session, I'm going to pass across to Jim, who's going to tell us a little bit about the ongoing BRP competition. James.
Absolutely, yes. If you are somebody who has written or wants to write or wants to continue writing, pick the tense, any kind of content for Chaosium games, any kind of BRP game, you should check out the ongoing BRP Community Content Program contest. This is something where you can write all kinds of stuff, everything from scenarios to all kinds of items and things like that, and you can win money and all that kind of fun stuff. So check it out. I'll put a link to it.
Can I put this link that you just shared earlier, Jim? Is that the one?
Absolutely.
Bam.
Yes. Bam.
Oh, that didn't work.
And yeah, check. Otherwise, you can just find it on the Chaosium website, read more about it, and get involved. Fun stuff.
Take two.
I mean, for the YouTube viewers, linky in the description, maybe.
Yeah.
Check it in. That's a good idea.
Put words in our mouth. I guess we'll put the link in the description now. Like we should have.
As in maybe.
No.
Maybe
well, you said it. Now he's going to do it. You're giving Dave homework.
You think I got YouTube description time? Yeah, what?
You got enough to do already.
What else is going to be in the YouTube description? Just throw some other stuff in there. What do we want?
I mean, for one, maybe some content warnings. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, content warning, a haiku.
Word poem.
I've got a really good recipe for peach pie.
Yeah, whack it in. Send through anything in the. Put a comment
Just
in the Twitch chat of what you want in the YouTube description. We'll fill it up. Yeah, all done. Easy. Terrific. Yeah, so the link there is there, and who knows where else it.
There's also probably a bunch of other cool stuff.
Check out the YouTube description. It's the latest blog from Chaosium.
Just see what you find. Just see what you find.
Check it out. Cool.
Maybe there's something. Maybe
Just
there
chatting
isn't.
in
Who
there.
knows?
Grand. All right. So without further ado, we'll return to the scenario at hand.
There'll be a little bit more ado, I'm sure, knowing this group.
Before the next ado happens, we return to Tarryford, where our 4 investigators, 2 returning and 2 brand spanking new, actually 1 brand spanking new, the other one kind of secondhand, have gathered to investigate a strange sleeping sickness that has beset the town and unfortunately already taken its first victim. But will they be the first of many? We return to our heroes as they gather outside the surgery of Dr. Parsons, where Miss Radcliffe and Mr. Potterton are already waiting, and Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth now arrive. We'll each introduce our investigators, starting with Art.
It's a perfect moment for me to yawn.
And
also, yeah. I also want to point out that you say that you're the keeper for this session. You're the keeper for most sessions, so at least at some point, we should,
This session.
you know, Dave
It's
does
true.
a lot of work. We do love our keeper Dave. And
You can't have him.
life difficult. I mean, yeah, no, probably not.
Not for sale.
Nope.
Make an offer, though. I'm
Yeah,
not
take your
eliminating it.
money.
Whack
Yeah.
a comment in.
Hi, I'm Art. I'm playing the good Reverend Samuel Jennings, sad man, kind of curious and slightly more invested in weird occult religious man than previously. What can I say about Sam except that? I think very interested in what the heck is going on with the sleeping sickness. But is very much in the stage of going, this is weird. I wonder what this is about.
Also, as one of the only surviving investigator that witnessed the end of the last scenario, hearing the strange musings from Miss Radcliffe of this dark and forgotten place, especially on the eve of 1 year's passing. Raise the hackles a bit, I'm sure.
Just realized that this Sam has done like a complete 180 in terms of outlook compared to our previous Sam in a long running campaign.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Dr. Sam.
Very
Oh,
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Different vibe, but that's
Love Dr.
okay. There's all
Sam.
kinds of Sams out there in the world. You don't have to stick with one
Yeah.
flavor.
Also, yours was Doctor and this is Reverend. On different,
Totally different.
different
totally.
vibes. Yeah,
Be
completely
the Sam
different.
you want to be. That's the message of this stream. All right. Speaking of which, or whatever, Jackson.
Hey, that's me. I'm Jackson, and I am, to the best of most people's knowledge, playing Miss Jane Radcliffe, a arrivee from lands afar who's been taken in and shown all kinds of generous and generosity. That sentence got away with me. That's okay. Been shown all kinds of generosity while she's staying in Tarryford, including, where all the money is. In theory, or any valuable paintings, any locked safes around the Waterton estate would be very, very good to know while she's here for reasons unknown. I was trying to be coy, but that just came out as a jumble of words. Y'all know what's going on. Watch the last episode if you don't. Jeez,
Yeah,
get off my back. I can't be bothered spelling it out for you. Sorry.
Well, I guess
We are fighty this morning.
yeah, there's a certain energy that's
Sorry.
happening. And let's embrace it. Let's go across to Jimbo.
Hello, yes, I am Jim. I am playing George Potterton. I
George
was
Potterton.
formerly an NPC in the last scenario. Some people have greatness thrust upon them. I'd like to give it back. I can't, so I'm doing my best to just sort of keep up to date with everything. Reached the level of my idol, Captain Stone. I bought like a little trading sword. I'm gonna make it one day. You'll
You've
see,
got a
or
real
I'll
sword.
end up paste.
Yeah.
But I'm a banker, basically, the heir to a sizable estate, and I've met a lovely a young woman who is very interested in the location of all the paintings in my estate, and I'm very happy to point them all out.
Show her how all the keys and locks work.
Yeah, we have some of the best locks in all of Tarryford.
Fantastic. All right, we'll go finally across to Alex.
Hello, I'm Alex, and I'm playing Miss Emma Wentworth, who is now, unfortunately, the oldest Wentworth sister.
Oh my God.
After the previously eldest Wentworth sister was
Went off into some eldritch horror thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't conscious for that part, and I'm glad for it. But now I have a shotgun and a desire for vengeance. So we'll see where that takes us. And a fiance. The good Reverend is more interested in, I think, making sure that nothing bad happens to anybody else in town, solving the mystery to make sure that everybody stays safe. Miss Wentworth is interested that only insofar as she can kill as many eldritch things as possible.
Rock and roll. Hell yeah. Love to hear it.
Sliding solidly into Pride and Prejudice and zombies.
Yeah. Well, it was a matter of time. It was a slippery slope that we were already descending. Fantastic. So the when we resume, it's late morning. We're coming up towards lunch in Tarryford. It's a busy town with people coming and going, carts clattering along the roads, and people moving their wares hither and thither, rather. You are all gathered outside the surgery of Dr. Parsons. It is a sort of 2-story little building, and directly to the right of it is another sort of like attached cottage, which houses the midwife for the town. There is no like text reading, like just displaying what it is, but it's well known in the area. And as you arrive, there are like sizable divots in the road nearby where a carriage would probably be stopped regularly, but one is absent. The town is, people are coming and going. It's like people are well aware of your presence. And Miss Radcliffe and Mr. Potterton have had a short period to reconvene. Miss Radcliffe to hide the tear in her dress when Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth arrive on their own carriage and join the two of you out the front. Pass it across to the four of
I'll have handed over the tinctures that you requested at this point as well. And after greeting everybody, so I suppose we head inside now. Is there an approach we need for this? Is there any kind of?
We've been invited, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm just checking if there's a. I don't know. I kind of glance towards you, Reverend, a little bit. Is there like a strategy? Is there a?
My good Mr. Potterton, we're going to inquire to see additional information about the people who are unwell. I don't know if a strategy is required so much as just general etiquette, general inquiry. I'm sure if the good doctor isn't in, but perhaps his wife would be able to direct us. She's a Mrs. What is the doctor's name? Why have I lost my brain?
Parsons.
I wouldn't know the first name. That's not a thing I would. Well, actually, I probably would know that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
You wouldn't call her by
no one
dream of
else.
saying it.
It's one of those that, yeah, Mrs. Parsons would be able to help us. So I think I'm just gonna like walk up and knock on the door, and see who answers.
Yep.
If it's one of the staff, if it's one of Mrs. That one.
Yeah,
It's gone already. Mrs. Parsons, thank you. There we go. Shit.
You walk up to the front door, knock on it, and it will indeed be a staff member that answers the door. Inquiring after Dr. Parsons will tell you that he is presently out, but should return around lunchtime to eat with his wife. Mrs. Parsons is present, and knowing that Reverend Jennings and probably becoming aware of Mr. Potterton's presence, she will make herself known shortly, coming down the stairs, relieving the servant of the introductions and greeting the two of you. Miss Radcliffe and Miss Wentworth.
Bow, curtsy, bow.
Running through things. Now, each of you have been introduced with the exception of Miss Radcliffe, who has not met her previously. And as she walks you inside to stand in the entry room to say, and Mr. Potterton, who is your companion.
Yes, this is the illustrious Miss Radcliffe, a visitor to Tarryford who I have been hosting at my home.
No, I'm familiar. My husband has mentioned you came in some state when you first arrived. I'm glad to see you're feeling better.
Yes, much better, thank you. And all thanks to your husband. The good doctor is quite a useful asset to have in a small town as Tarryford. And well, I'm sure he's only as useful as he is, thanks to his hearth and home being kept as warm as you can.
Yes, well, it's
only you can.
Keenly noticed. He is indeed a capable surgeon, and I believe better served tending to your likes, Miss Radcliffe and Mr. Potterton. He's wasted in this small town, if I could be so bold as to say. And truly, I think, I'm not grateful that you were ill, but a chance to show his mettle, I think, is well earned. I'm afraid he isn't in currently, but is there anything that I could help you with? He should be home in an hour or so at most. And if I could offer you a drink or something, I'd be grateful for the company.
But of course, a refreshment would be most agreeable, Mrs. Parsons. I was actually, we spoke to your husband this morning with regards to the number of unfortunate incidences of people in town with a sleeping sickness, and he was so kind as to allow me to view some of his records about those patients specifically. If you would happen to know, if you would happen to have access to that information yourself and could provide it, I would be very grateful. But of course, if you wish to wait for your husband to, if that would be more appropriate, then of course we will happily have tea with you until he arrives.
Of course I have access to the records and these sort of things, but listen, let us not dwell on mundane, day-to-day issues. No, I rather think that, Mr. Potterton, I'm excited to hear of your acquaintance with Miss Radcliffe. And Miss Wentworth, I understand that Elizabeth has new people staying with her. You were always close. Would you be able to tell me anything more about this? As she leads you through into a parlor room, clearly more interested in the politics and not gossip, but sort of like maneuvering in Tarryford than the ongoing troubles.
Very happy to
Well, of course,
gossip.
they've had family staying with them, sir. Some cousins, I believe it is. You know, you should get in touch and see if you might want to call around. I believe they're accepting visitors again, and I spoke with Elizabeth only yesterday, and they seem to be quite delighted about how things are coming along, and I'm sure they'd be happy for the company. And as you say, your husband is such a marvelous surgeon, and the work that he's done for Jane and for many others in this town should not go unnoticed. And I think an introduction would absolutely be appropriate.
She puffs up at the compliments and takes them gratefully. You notice that she bristles only somewhat when you suggest that she calls upon the Northlakes. That would be a pretty big step up for her, and like they kind of got in under Dr. Parsons' like connections to the last ball, and that was very much through knowing Lord North. Like this, they would need a setup. That said, she tries to twist a little bit into you possibly getting her that introduction. She says, "Oh, well, how wonderful. Well, if ever there's the circumstance where you need another guest, you should only ask. I'd be delighted to see Elizabeth again and to meet the new Northlakes."
We're talking about like a slight difference in class, right? I imagine like
Which is
doctors and lawyers
It's
are just like the rung below the actual
a slight
gentry.
difference in class is
It's like
kind of heaps, though.
Yeah, the term
Until
used
you've
in
met them, it's heaps.
the term used in the book is pseudo gentry. They're like nice workers. You know, they are definitely anything below. They're not landed. They are not running the circles, but they're like practical things, and consider like piloting.
Yeah.
It's the sort of thing like your second son might go into. They would need to marry into nobility gentry to get up the next stage.
And once they get the introduction, it's kind of a non-issue. But until they've had the introduction, it's enough of a gap.
And even then, they would not call upon. Honestly, there's probably a level, and you get this from her, that she was like, they knew the previous Northlakes, and then one died and the other is off finding her daughter, and they're like, now I gotta meet the next Northlakes. God damn it! I
go through that again.
All my work for nothing.
And I think Emma probably picks up on that, is that like, it's not that they don't know this family, it's just that social rules dictate. Yes. And as a young woman who is rubbed up against what social rules dictate, there is a modicum of sympathy there.
Yeah.
And also aware that we're, kind of imposing and we want something out of our husband.
Yeah. So
smooth the way for the fiance.
So she does seem to be suggesting that you could go and take a look. She has access to things. If you want to try and maneuver the conversation back towards asking for like information things, you can do so. Otherwise, something like a charm check would probably just get her on your side. You're definitely saying the right things. Would you like to, or would you like to sit quietly and hope that the husband returns soon?
No, heck it, I want to throw a charm check that way.
Okay.
Could I also very quickly? I've got this crate of medicine that was delivered to me by the apothecary that might be useful. Can I use that?
She's gonna hate that, dude.
There's some quotations around medicine there. That's closer to snake oil, and definitely from her perspective.
We probably would have taken that from you and put it in the carriage, to be honest. Just like, nope, don't let her.
I was wondering if you could get us.
You don't want to take this into a doctor's.
You're right.
Yeah. She's gonna hate that.
Yeah.
Suggest that because my etiquette isn't too terrible. While I'm not charming, I am happy to support and potentially say something on the lines of, "My dear, if we were to have your good friend Miss Northlake around for dinner, perhaps an extra, to round out the table, it would be appropriate to have one or two extra guests. It would only be reasonable, and I could certainly see that the parsonage could do with a little more livening than perhaps I've given it in the past."
Well, while my parents are away, I am indeed caretaking my family home, and we have so much space and just little old me in it. It would be wonderful to have a slightly larger dinner party than we are used to. We could absolutely accommodate several more guests, and I've been wanting to do something like that, so
yeah, the idea of
we should put our heads together and consider something.
And perhaps this can replace the void left by the Northlake Ball.
I ain't hosting no balls, but
Boo.
Come to dinner.
Throw a rage at.
There's definitely a you must indeed come dine with us at some point.
Yeah.
How grand.
Dining is definitely, which also for the funsies, dining means lunch, not dinner.
Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
No.
Yeah. If you say you must come around for dinner, it's ye oldie English. It's lunch.
Supper is
dinner is supper,
Someone
which
should
is
explain
usually
to them that they've
bread.
gotten that wrong.
No, someone should explain to everyone else that they've gotten it
Oh.
wrong.
All right, Alex, you
But
want to go
also,
ahead and...
dinner is a main meal, and we technically have those at night now, so it's just that we've shifted the time of dinner, not that dinner has in fact changed.
Neat. Alex, you want to go ahead and give a charm roll, and you can take a bonus dice through your charming fiance.
Oh, nice.
Etiquetal fiance.
Babe, we're besties.
We get on so well. Yeah, you schmooze in all the appropriate manners. She's very grateful for a possible invitation and definitely kind of like calls on it. Basically, you could probably call on them and they will drop other things to attend on short notice. She also sees this as basically a chance to kind of get that foot up into society. The whole space kind of stalled a bit after the events at the North Lake Ball last year, and it's kind of only just getting its way back in. And you kind of realize a little bit that there is a vacuum here to be filled. The North Lakes ran everything.
Yeah.
The other largest family is the Ashes.
Sorry, Cinnamon's decided to park herself right in front of my mic. There's
for
nothing
her.
I can do about this.
That's all good. The other large family is the Ashes, and they've taken off things like they are the local judge now, because it would go to just basically like the wealthiest and most important person, so that would be who you'd go before for crimes. But beyond that, it's like Pottertons, and then it probably pretty quickly tumbles down to like the Wentworths and folks like that. So there's definitely space here for, garnering reputation. As this is happening, Miss Radcliffe and Mr. Potterton, are you just sitting by and making quiet conversation, or would you like to do anything further?
I'll be good.
Okay.
I'm more kind of interested in the sickness at this stage. I mean, when it's polite, I could kind of prompt again, since Mrs. Parsons says that she can get access to records. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm gonna die tomorrow, I'd like to know.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I think once we
if
had
this
our
thing
own
comes
side,
back,
I did want to lean into we actually know someone who's affected who is gentry, but if you're going to take that, then feel free to go.
Yeah.
or
So I would probably ask for an etiquette roll to try and steer this conversation carefully towards basically asking to have a snoop through notes. You could also try just like a fast talk or similar to simply excuse yourself and then go and just have a look around the house.
Oh, that'd be a bit too sneaky.
Not your...
I'm happy to come to your support here as well. I think I'm very keen to talk about your amazing constitution and just kind of weirdly look for any opportunity to be like bigging you up.
Number one fan.
Just point out how tough I am. Good strong body for childbearing.
It's not
going for.
That can all be said. None of that is relevant to what you're trying to do, which is look through notes.
I think
you
the
can
idea
say
is,
it. I don't think it gives a bonus.
I think it's more to the point that it's whatever you're suggesting. If you bring up anything, I go, that's the best idea I've ever
My
heard.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
so you're just being a simp.
I'm simping real hard. Yeah.
I'm also happy to like, not necessarily, if there is an appropriate moment during the like bringing up of this, like the notes from Miss Radcliffe's, I was ill, to be like, oh, I should have mentioned we spoke to Dr. Parsons this morning when he was attending Miss Radcliffe, who also seemed to have been affected by the sleeping sickness, and we're trying to get more information for the purposes of making sure that she's not also unwell, but that'll like an addendum to whatever Jackson does in this moment. If that's considered appropriate to provide a bonus die by giving like that extra context, and also the fact that I have a bit of like, I have some reputation towards being like a trustworthy person. But if not, then that's fine.
You can do that. Here's the thing. It's going to be... You can take a bonus dice. This is going to be a hard etiquette roll, because this is basically asking to look through things while he's not present. You've kind of been said he will be back in, an hour or so. And Mrs. Parsons doesn't seem to have any great pressure, doesn't seem to look at this as something super important. So there's a small risk here of basically overstepping. You can go ahead and make an etiquette roll with a bonus die, so if you wish, or you can walk it back knowing the stakes.
I'll have a go. What's the harm? There's no harm in failing. Some harm in fumbling.
Well, there might be.
With a bonus die. Surely.
I mean... Oh.
Okay, well, never mind. That'd about
do
it,
the
wouldn't
bonus
it?
die. The bonus die cannot improve my chances.
Mr. Potterton, your heart goes all aflutter for just a moment as Miss Radcliffe deftly maneuvers her way through this conversation in such a way that soon you find you being walked back through into a small office adjacent to the surgery itself, where a number of notes and different herbs, surgical implements and things are all scattered out. It's a well-kept and very clean studio. All of the shiny steel implements and things well cared for, rolled up in oilcloth, and stored, and there is an abundance of notes through here. Mrs. Parsons opens the door with a sort of good luck finding anything in there, but feel free to have a look, and I'd suggest you start from the right. I believe they're arranged somewhat chronologically. She is not leaving you yourselves, but she is allowing you to basically go in with the assumption that you are looking into your own records, kind of, and then you can, if you come across something else. She is also, you're aware, this is her overstepping. This is her doing something that she kind of shouldn't be. You get the she's trying to do it to get on side with the four of you, in particular, Mr. Potterton and Miss Wentworth. She's trying to show herself to be agreeable, show herself to be willing to, help out the gentry, and basically here to make friends. What would she continues to stay here and make conversation, but what would anyone like to look into?
I might actually.
Just looking at my own.
Can I make an aside to you, Alex, as Emma, and just sort of say, Miss Parsons, if can we be at all out of earshot, or enough that
well, Miss Radcliffe and Mr. Potterton lead the charge. The two of you can fall back for a moment and have a few quiet words.
Yeah.
Miss why the name gone again? Miss Doctor's wife.
Parsons.
Parsons. Oh my god. This is wow. My brain. Mrs. Parsons seems to have a rather strong interest in the comings and goings of the town and of the people. And you are, of course, Miss Wentworth, are very deft, personalized, good at people, in a way that I am perhaps not. I was wondering perhaps if it would be worth asking Miss Parsons about gossip, rumors, that kind of thing. It's not something that I feel particularly comfortable engaging with. I know ladies in general like to talk about the social goings on, and not to imply, of course, that that's your only interest, or that you're, but
My dear, I follow.
Okay. That was.
Shut up. I know what I'm doing.
And yes, you're right. I was sort of taken from my sympathy of they've worked very hard to be as respected in this town as the hard work they put in deserves, and with the kind of, I guess, changing of hands of the Northlake estate, they've taken a bit of a step backward there. Hence the eagerness, I suppose, but you're right, she probably knows some things. Her interest in the town and gossip is well known.
Perhaps not necessarily about the common people, but
well, no.
Definitely if there's... She seems like a woman who would know a great many things about...
Actually, that was interesting, though. She did seem quite intent, referring to her husband's her requirement to work with
yes, I'm
lay people, the regular people, as much as, and it seems like she would much prefer him to be working only with gentry, etc. But I can understand that. But she did seem very insistent. It was an odd thing to say first off.
I think perhaps
it's not the fashion for doctors at this time.
If I was I was feeling less charitable, my dear. I would suggest that perhaps Mrs. Parsons feels that her husband's time is better spent treating those people that could help their family advance in society.
Oh, well, most certainly. I suppose I'm just a little bit primed to
Of course. I
notice things that may not be as they seem. It's uncharitable of me.
No, my dear. I think, if anything, it may be a little more uncharitable of Mrs. Parsons. But be that as it may, if you would perhaps talk to her, see what you can find out, and I'll try and make sure that the good doctor is not too disturbed by our prodding and poking, perhaps a little prematurely.
Yes, keep our line of questioning vague. Or when the doctor is back, I'll press her for more gossip. Perhaps make sure Jane is with me.
Thank you.
The two of you can step up behind the others, and you have a short window of basically looking privately before the doctor returns. If there's anything there's anything you want to study, and then you can probably step away from this and back into the room so that when the doctor returns, there's no evidence of having had a little snoop.
Good.
Despite the wife, who is completely aware.
I mean, I genuinely like the Reverend is genuinely like, the doctor gave me, like, said that he would be willing to share notes. I am here for that purpose. And like, if there is very much an implication that we should be waiting for the doctor before we are let in, then I think perhaps he will actually maybe hang back a little with Mrs. Parsons, sort of to like, maybe not necessarily engaging her in conversation at this point, depending on what Emma decides to do, but is a little bit more like, oh, I was kind of under the impression that, you know, perhaps you had spoken to your husband and he had told you that we were potentially coming, but if not, then yeah, if I get the impression that this is being done under the table, I have no interest in going behind the doctor's back. I'm purely like here for what the doctor said he would show me, so I will wait.
This is a little underhanded, not greatly so, and you have technical permission. You've maneuvered your way through this so you can come out with quote-unquote clean hands, but this is definitely being a little sneaky. Basically, is anyone going in to have a bit of a snoop around before the doctor gets back, or because otherwise you can just pass the time quickly?
Nope.
I'd like to have a snoop.
Okay.
I wanted to get in that room.
Mr. Pottinger can step inside.
I think I'd like to, you know, have a look at the space without the doctor in there, just to like kind of take in, you know, what's on the shelves, what kind of the layout is.
You can see the interior, but you're not going through books and things. Who is? Jim, you're interested in having a bit of a snoop. Jackson, are you going in and having a thumb around? Okay.
Starting with my own kind of records, but then if I come across other people experiencing the same thing.
So you can, it'll be easy to go through and have a quick look through the records. I will ask for a library use to like study it at Greylands, and then actually going through the tomes themselves is going to be in language English roll to try and like skim it quickly and find things of note. So if the two of you want to go ahead and give me library use rolls to get a sense for the area, or one of you can do so with a bonus dice of the other, given you are kind of working together.
I will probably keep chattering in that case. If the others are walking away, I will continue to chatter to Abigail and steer the conversation towards other people in town. You know, noting the vacuum that has been left in lieu of the North Lakes. 100%. Just an incessant patter that she's quite good at.
Yeah.
With the goal of getting Abigail to kind of open up about anything she might know.
Perfect. You can do that to not only give her like light distraction, but also we'll have you give a roll to see what other information you can uncover. Jim and Jackson, how have you gone?
I don't have much in the way of library use. How about you, George?
Look, I'm not fantastic, I'm afraid, but I do have, if you let me pitch this at you, Dave, I was thinking, coming in, I'm not medically trained, but I'm also under no illusion. If Dr. Parson couldn't figure this out, I don't think I am. I don't think anyone is. He's a good doctor. I do have some natural philosophy, and my idea was that if this is beyond the domains of medicine as it appears to be. Maybe taking it for a look from a scientific angle might work. Got a 40 in natural philosophy. Could I try and look for his notes for something
this you just need to understand that you will still need to make a language English roll to just understand, get a sense of his notes, read his shorthand, and know what basically get a feel for what he has found.
I'll go with language English then, which will be equal to my edu. So I'm just going to make an edu roll.
Okay, so in that case, and with no library use roll, you're basically just grabbing the first book, opening it, and having a thumb through.
I can make I'll make a library. Do you want to give me a bonus die for library use then?
I'll give you a bonus die.
All right, perfect.
Okay, go ahead and make that roll for me.
Perfect. 1 failure. Bonus brings it. Nah, no dice.
Okay. You have a quick third. He has a number of books scattered around, as well as a lot of reference tomes that are moved throughout. He covers a lot of medical things, as well as branching into things like natural philosophy. He studies some history and pieces like that. He's clearly a man of interests, and his hobby time, in fact, the mug of tea or equivalent left by the table that has cooled overnight, suggests that this is probably where he retires to after supper. Myself to study, continue his learning, things like that. There are a great many books inside here, but at the moment, no great sense of what they might direct you towards. You instead just turn your attention to the closest one of his diaries left open on the table and begin to thumb through it. It is written in scrolling shorthand. There is a number of sort of references, and he jots down quick work. Quickly going through it, you can occasionally see names that you might recognize, but actually interpreting the maladies that he is remedying, looking through the solutions and things like that, or drawing any other information from it will require a language English roll. As in the doorway, the Reverend and Miss Wentworth continue to talk with Parsons. The two of you can do so. If one of you would like to roll a language English check with a bonus dice.
I'm happy to do it. My edu is 70, so my language English will be 70.
Please do.
Yes. Okay. All right.
I insist.
I desperately try to show off to you. Look at how well I can read illegible doctor handwriting. That is a 43 success. Bonus die. No, just a regular success.
It's difficult to see, and given you're doing this all under time pressure, you don't get a great amount of information. But you can see that he is
down to a hard if it'll make a difference.
A hard might. Let me tell you what you get in a regular first one. You can see if there's a direction you might want to pry into further. He is taking this very seriously. This is the greatest priority. He has had interviews with all of the parties and has so far not been able to draw any conclusions as to a connection. He seems to think it has something to do with the fact that they are all lower class, for lack of a better word, working folk, with the exception of Mr. Havering, who was one of the more recent to fall ill and kind of breaks the pattern, as well as Miss Radcliffe. That's true. So also Miss Radcliffe, you're the only one to wake up. The most recent notes are drawn as he returned from your home, saying it is miraculous that you have returned. He wishes to interview you further. He has sought aid with the Reverend and his compatriots, hoping that they might draw some conclusions that he has been unable to find. He's trying to basically pull together a connection, believing that may be the beginning, I want to say impetus, that's not really the right word, whatever started this illness, but he has so far not been able to find it. Going backwards, you can begin to find record of him treating other people, but that would take you more time to thumb through. The only other thing you will note, a success, is his references to the cadaver that he has of Mr. Copeland that came here late last night and is currently downstairs, where he intends to do a basically, I don't know where we're at surgically, but functionally like an autopsy, and have a bit of a prod around would be the technical term for it.
Yeah.
As this happens, elsewhere in the house, one of the staff members will open the door as Mr. Parsons returns. Dr. Parsons rather returns. Miss Wentworth and Reverend Jennings, you have a brief talk to Abigail, but not so far as to... actually, you'd have a little moment. Do you want to go ahead? No roll needed. You can tell that she's interested in the town. Depending on who you ask about will probably scale what I need you to roll. General gossip and things, that's on the table. She can give you a little bit of insight into kind of anyone for free. If you want to point it towards some more dangerous targets like the Reverend Choke or Mr. Asher, people like that, you might need to make a roll to basically, as she gets the gauge of what side does she want to play in the story.
I think it'll be general gossip at this point, because we're just we're not really sure what else is out there.
Okay. Well, so what I'll tell you just across the road, the vacuum left by the North Lakes has definitely been felt. In town as well, people have kind of been scouring. There's a little bit of, there's the beginning of not sinking ship, but like things are not great at the moment. People are beginning to come back up, and the return of the North Lakes is being taken as a positive thing. That others are coming to inhabit the hall. It's not being left to kind of molder. Shows that it's been reinvigorated. Also, you will learn, for freezies, that the new Northlakes, that's Mr. Robert Northlake and Miss Diana Northlake, have been seen in town a couple of times, basically inquiring at local trades, not fully like rubbing elbows with the locals. You can definitely get the impression that Mrs. Parsons is unsure how to present this at the moment. She doesn't know if she should be like in favor of it and like look how generous they are, or if she should be like if she wants to come against them, because she's trying to get your read first and then mirror that. But they've been in town quite a lot and meeting a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Out of interest, just because it was mentioned these were cousins.
Yes.
Are
they
Robert
be like
and Diana married, or are they
siblings?
Siblings.
Okay,
thank you.
So they're two current. Yeah, okay, cool.
Siblings.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Siblings, although I will say Mrs. Parsons does that like, but they're very close, and kind of just lets that hang a little bit.
Okay.
She's not directly implying anything. That'd be very
but
improper.
She's also not.
She's also one to gossip and make things a little bit more extreme.
Yes.
So that's for you to decide.
Yeah.
When
It's interesting.
I No, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to push that line of questioning right this second. But
No, it's just something we put in the back pocket.
Also, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pulling from last scenario and from those nice little notes that we got to see about all of the people who were invited. It does say, old Nathaniel Havering, definitely improving, not bad manners at all for a fortune-wielding tradesman, definitely Mrs. H's genteel upbringing working wonders there, I think, which would imply that Havering was not always of the gentry.
Correct. Mr. Havering bought his way into the gentry functionally, and it is through his wife he has established himself.
That's a real life library use role right there. Reading the handouts.
Well done.
If it does that.
Well, firstly, I fully was like, did I swear I read this somewhere. Is he the one that wasn't? I know there was one person who was like, not originally. Now, are tradespeople considered lower class? That kind of depends on it. They're definitely like
they are. So I'll just take because
would they be considered lower class in the same sense of like a farm laborer or like a tavern owner?
Per the great knowledge I've drawn from this terrific tome, Regency Cthulhu, basically the rising merchant class is like a threat to the established gentry. They are seen as definitely not like lower class working people. They are, and they can kind of get their way into the gentry. But that's why so many of these strange etiquette walls are thrown up. It's basically to kick the bastards out. Like, sure, they bought their way in, sure, they're rich, but try and tell them to pick which fork is used for oysters. That'll show you who's really old money.
We're seeing capitalism coming for feudalism.
Yes.
I wanted
before our very eyes.
I wanted to quickly mention this when we were talking about the class of the Parsons as well. I think genuinely the term I think is petit bourgeois for this group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think it is. There's a great summary of it. But one of the big things they mention is basically like here we go. It's like following the Industrial Revolution, it's this rising merchant class that's kind of it's driving a wedge between, but also bridging that gap between. Previously, it was like the people that work in the farm and us who have the farm. And I don't like these ones here moving the stuff from this farm to that farm and making money off it. That should be my money.
The tyranny of the burgers. Have them all beheaded.
Yes, see, Jim gets it. Jim gets it.
And are these cousins on? Which side are these cousins on?
They're through the Northlake style. They're not through Lydia's. You do not know exactly how close they are or how they came to inherit. They are just referred to as cousins. That could be like way back cousins, though. It could just be a shorthand.
Yeah.
Who knows, like how many, like whether they had land of their own, or if they're like their cousins, they'd be like second sons of second sons.
Yeah.
And so maybe they had nothing before they suddenly got this Northlake estate.
Exactly.
They do seem a little more willing
also,
to rub elbows.
Yeah. The wife was the one with land, was the landed gentry, but it was
That's the Haverings.
the Haverings, and the but the cousins are coming through the side where the bullshittery came from.
Mm-hmm.
So,
actually, that is something back for later consideration. There would be either in my parsonage or in Reverend Choke's parsonage a record of like history of the town and families. So it is possible that there might be a record, at least maybe not. Like there would be a family tree somewhere.
It would.
That we could look at.
They is older. They came to your parish after being. It would probably be through Reverend Choke that information will be stored, or alternatively, you know of an existing family tree preserved in the Dowager Lady Northlake's Bible that you referenced during the previous scenario. You did. You did not follow through the side threads.
No.
I tell you, if you wanted to, you could try and make an. Knowing the names, you could maybe make it'd be like an extreme intelligence roll to
let's
recall. You did have a look.
Unintelligence, but I could, as we're probably talking and gossiping and about who's coming to town, I would probably try and cast my mind back, but I wouldn't be
channeling your older sister.
Yeah, but she was more educated. It's just no, that's not going anywhere.
No, unless you're willing to spend the requisite
heart.
21 points of luck. Unfortunately, although what you know on a success is that thing was reasonably thorough. Now, if this branched way earlier, it might not have it. It's only got so much, and it'll only be the people that they kept up with nominally. Like, we heard of this child born, we'll record that. It was definitely focused on their thread. Yeah. So it may not have the information.
They must have some, because like cousins are.
Well, they made a claim basically, so there's something that's tracked it.
Yeah, whether that's through, say, like a solicitor or something like that. Solicitor.
Yeah.
Big smoke.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. At this point, one of the servants introduces Dr. Parsons, who steps into the hall, and you all emerge from it back into the parlor and kind of meet him coming through. Jim.
Just before we do, you mentioned that I might be able to luck something down to a hard success previously. I'm very happy if the moment has passed for that.
No.
But
wait, we're in the realm. Is there anything that you'd like to focus in through that information, basically? There's not like, I don't have a crumb sitting aside for it, but if you'd like to focus on something and get more information, you'd be able to.
So one of the angles I do have with all of this is that, as well as being a member of the gentry, I'm actually an accountant.
Yes.
It's kind of where I've kept the family wealth together by doing a little bit of that merchanty trade stuff. And I imagine that I maybe part of that is that I probably have pretty like big investments or like some kind of assets tied up in Tarryford itself.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible that looking at all these people, I've now got a list of these folks, I am thinking, all right, who would be trading with who? Because if these people are of nominally different class, I think the only reason they might meet each other is if they're actually conducting business. So I'm going, where is there a point for them to infect each other based on their business transactions?
Yes, so you can make that roll. Rather than lucking down the education rec, I will make you make a separate roll. You can possibly go down the accounting route or something similar. Sure. I will restate what I've told you previously, I believe, through Dr. Parsons, and then in the following conversations, you can try and weave some projects. Again, if you want something to be secretive, you could do it now. Otherwise, you can work with Dr. Parsons and the others to try and draw out a conclusion. He's working towards the same ends, or at least appears to be at the moment. So to reiterate, there's Garrett Copeland, who runs the Four Feathers. He is the one that first fell to sleep and also passed last night. His wife, Alice, survives him and is currently managing the tavern. There is Maggie and John Pilling. One is a laborer, and Maggie runs a laundry. They are the next to fall ill, and currently Lucy Newman, Maggie's unmarried sister, is watching over the two. There is Morris Solsmith. He is a baker in town. Then there is Marcus Tavistock. He's like 19. He's basically like a general dog's body about town. He does odd bits and ends. He'll run a message. He'll help you in the field. He'll do this and that. He's probably the poorest of you, and having no family in town, he is currently at Reverend Choke's, where he has been, is being watched after. Lastly, the most recent one to fall to sleep being Nathaniel Havering, who is out on their estate. His wife is looking after you. Miss Radcliffe, You fell to sleep in between Marcus Tavistock and Nathaniel Havering. So you were what would that be, the 6th to slumber, but the 1st to wake. You have definitely broken that pattern somewhat. There's no immediate connection except for lower class and the conclusion that Reverend Jennings has drawn, which is that Nathaniel Havering himself was not born into gentry. He maneuvered his way there.
Did I have contact with anyone else in the days before I was sick?
You don't know any of these names, with the exception of Garrett Copeland, who you have met. He runs the tavern, the Four Feathers, where you have been, because that's where you've met with your brother in the
that's
past.
true. Does that timing work out at all?
You met him a number of times while you were because you've been in here for a few months now, so you've been there. He's served you while you've done meetings and things like that. The others, genuinely, you'd probably need to get a description of. Not off the top of your head, no. You try to spend as little time in Terryford as possible because you're working with Mr. Potterton, and also because you don't want to kind of show as you're maintaining this upper class appearance. Going to a kind of dingy tavern would definitely shake that a bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how's my ruse going? You're saying that maybe the tavern owner was kind of onto me and being paid to keep it low?
Not necessarily. He just served you. There's a lot of people coming and going. You're a decent actor. You can disguise yourself. You probably present yourself a bit differently. You stay in a dingy corner. You to the best of your knowledge, you think you're good. That said, excellent. If there's a small part of you that goes maybe I've been poisoned or something, there is. The screws are tightening. You're running close on a deadline. You haven't gotten the information that's necessary. Something strange is happening. Now Potterton's about it. You probably can feel it ratcheting up a little bit, but for the moment, you think it's all holding together.
Good. Well then, no further questions. I will assume everything is fine until proven otherwise.
I got some more theories, but I reckon I'll tell them to the doctor, and he can knock them back.
Right.
Yes, let's hear what the doctor has to say for himself.
Dr. Parsons comes into the study and is visibly exhausted. He was tired when he arrived early in the morning at Miss Wentworth's, and he's not taken the sort of recovery time in the AM that the rest of you have. There's bags under his eyes, and his white shirt is beginning to show blotches of stains from just where the sweat is beginning to build up. He still holds himself presentably, but is treating the four of you with closer than just acquaintances. He comes into the parlor, bids you to sit down, and Mrs. Parsons excuses herself to fetch some refreshments or retop up the ones already prepared, and then she will spend the rest of the time kind of coming and going. She genuinely doesn't seem super interested in the investigation as it is, but anytime the story trends more towards gossip or insight into what the political maneuvering might be, she returns and definitely makes herself available. He says, thank you for coming in. Miss Radcliffe, I see you've decided to take in the morning air. I trust you're feeling up to it?
I think so, yes. In fact, the good air did me quite a bit of good. Thank you, Doctor. I know that's the prevailing medical advice is for some fresh country air to cycle through the lungs.
If you're amenable to it, I'll take some measurements of you now while we talk and just check your recovery. It's miraculous, truly, how you've sprung back, and unfortunately, I can't say anyone else is looking the same. I've just come from Maggie and John Pilling's home, where Miss Newman... you would say Mr. and Mrs. Pilling's home, where Miss Newman is looking after them. I'm afraid they've shown no signs. Truth told, I was hopeful that your return might suggest that others were to wake soon, but they show no signs. They slumber deeply and, to all eyes, merely rest. Already, though, they're beginning to look skinnier. They're taking in broth, but I'm afraid it's not enough. Fortunately, they've not shown signs of Mr. Copeland's, rather sudden death, but I have to say, if no solution is found, if no evidence of this, what could have caused this, is discovered, then I fear this is beyond my abilities.
Mr. Parsons, I wanted to throw out a few suggestions to you, thoughts. Perhaps maybe you can enlighten us as to whether you've already considered these avenues of investigation.
Please.
What about the idea of some kind of contagion, mutual infection, whatever? I can't help but notice the chronology of the people who you've mentioned as sick. it starts with a tavern owner, somebody potentially, if someone comes into town, this might be the first place that they would have stayed, followed immediately by a laundry where perhaps a traveler might have their effects tended to, a baker. There's a line that could be tracked relatively easily through.
I suppose it's possible. A dark horse, for lack of a better word, arriving in Tarryford is not uncommon. People come and go all the time. It's reasonable, I suppose, but not something I've had a chance to follow up on. Unfortunately, and I must beg your forgiveness, my time is committed as it can be, traveling between all these people and trying to keep them as well as they can be. I think it's a reasonable thing. If you want to pursue that, I would suggest you then start at the source. Perhaps speak with Alice Copeland at the Four Feathers Tavern and inquire if anyone new has come into town. Perhaps she has some insight.
Glancing across at Jackson, that's a great avenue of investigation.
He notices at this point, as he's got his thumb on your pulse, he notices it quickens a little bit. Miss Radcliffe, please. It's concerning, but stay at rest. He will eat as you're talking, which is again possibly a little bit rude, but he really is short on time. Mrs. Parsons doesn't want to do it, but he insists. He'll also tell you that he's planning to go and visit Morris Solsmith right after this, and then tonight, when he has some free time, he's going to take a closer look at Garrett Copeland's. Come the morning, he's traveling out to Nathaniel Havering's.
The only other suggestion I had, but just very quickly, was that whatever happened to Miss Radcliffe, what was different for her, and the only thing I can think of is that she was staying at my house. What treatment was different for her there? Was I correct in hearing that, just in my memory before I asked him, the apothecary mentioned that he had delivered the sleeping tonic to help people to everyone else?
Not necessarily to everyone else. Nathaniel Havering has not taken it, but he has been, pretty much people have come in and requested to buy stuff from him. Yes. That is because, Dr. Parsons is very expensive and is kind of doing this on half charity at the moment. But basically, all these people are unfortunately running up debts as he continues to look into them, and they're going to get out of hand. Already, some of them are probably screwed.
Yeah.
So they would start to basically reject his help and look only to Rufus Owings. For example, Marcus Tavistock has no money to his name and is basically just fallen on Reverend Choke's favor. If he gets and Dr. Parsons at the moment is treating this as something he wants to look into, but eventually he'll probably have to redirect his attentions elsewhere. So they're beginning to just go to apothecaries. They're trying, different oils and things with the hope that might revive them.
In which case, I probably, because I know he'll.
And Miss Radcliffe did not take any of these.
Yes, flavored under the my father has beliefs kind of. I know that everyone else who is still sick has been taking the slop from the guy you don't like, and Miss Radcliffe wasn't. I will mention I have a sample if he wants to examine it.
Fools! This is not something that we could solve with simple oils. If they think a basic apothecary can return them to life, then let them try. Truth told, they're wasting their money. I'll take the tincture, but I doubt I'll have the time to study it.
I was wondering if it was prolonging their sickness, to be clear. Because the only thing that's different about Miss Radcliffe is that she wasn't taking it. Perhaps it is,
a good thought. I'll certainly suggest they don't take it. It's a waste of their coin and as liable to poison them as anything else. Yes, I'll suggest it. But truth be told, my stance on that apothecary has been made very clear in Tarryford, and I'd never suggest anyone attend to him.
Yes,
just confirming the order of operations. These people got sick and then started buying things from the apothecary,
they fell to slumber. It wasn't even sick. They went to sleep and then didn't wake up. And then eventually some of their people looking after them began to go to the apothecary to try and find a solution. Right. They were already sleeping.
So it's not like they were using the apothecary and that is why they got sick.
They may have been using the apothecary already. That may be the through thread. Nathaniel Havering pretty pointedly wouldn't be, and likely Marcus wouldn't be able to afford it. He seems to be very much he's one step up above begging. He's just do any work to try and survive the day.
Stay alive.
Yeah. But Choke might. I mean, it's possible that, like, I mean, it's not like they're making the decision to
No.
imbibe the tinctures.
That's
you
true.
know?
Listen, Reverend, you'd be familiar with Reverend Choke. Perhaps you could go and call upon him, ask some questions. I'd tell the truth, he doesn't want my charity desperately. I've checked in on Marcus Tavistock, but as long as he slumbers, the moment the Reverend Choke is happy to take him in the Lord's embrace, pray over him and hope that rises him. Again, I hope that you can find some solution, but at the moment,
Dr. Parsons, would you be so kind as to assist me in your notes are very well maintained, but you're using a type of shorthand that I'm less than familiar with. Would you mind running me through a few of the notes you have on these? I'd like to take a look over them with his assistance for like making sure that I understand the ins and outs from a specifically occult perspective.
okay.
I'm wanting to like instead of like through that line of very specifically, he's come to us because he's like, I'm not sure this is medical. So at this point, I would
and
with
he is
his
a little
help
aware
to
of strangeness. He'd be open to that. He's uncomfortable he's not comfortable with it, but he's open to it. This is gonna be the last.
I think like specifically, I'm couching it as would you mind assisting me with the like what is in here?
That's fine.
I would like to take a look at these from if medicine is not the route, then perhaps a spiritual aspect is worth considering.
Oh, there is one.
And also, if you've met most people in town in a different way than he may have, and might know things about their daily lives that could have.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because I'm suspecting he may.
This is going to be the last. This is going to be the last thing he does. He's finishing his food, and he needs to get to check in on the Soulsmiths. But
Well,
he can
I
come
was-
soon quickly. Yep.
I was wondering, Dr. Parsons, if I might accompany you on at least some rounds. Perhaps, my
on
experience from the
doing
last few days might provide some insights into the best method of care for these poor souls.
You'd like to attend with me as I check in on some of the others?
Yes, and indeed, if it is a contagious sort of disease, there's a chance I might have some level of immunity, mightn't there?
Truth told, I can't begin to think how it transmits, but if you want to, you can come with me. Mr. Potterton, will you accompany?
Certainly, that sounds. I'd be happy to be there.
Very well. Well, I'll show the Reverend my book and explain the beginnings of my shorthand, and then the two of you can come with me. We'll head for Goldsmiths.
Is there one place where he's not making rounds? Is the tavern.
Yeah, that's true.
So if I stick
That
with
dude
him,
is-
that's the one place
yeah.
I won't go.
You're all good.
Reverend, can you give me an occult roll? And this is. Yeah, you're being. Go ahead and do a straight roll. This is probably going to be getting hard. Okay.
Not able to grab anything.
You have a thumb through it, and yeah, nothing immediately comes to mind. Genuinely, you're kind of like, if I had more time and the ability to study, maybe I could draw some conclusions, but this is like fourth hand at this point. And some level, you'll just need to go to the source. Okay.
Well, then I think perhaps our next best destination is to speak with Mrs. Copeland at the tavern. But I believe Dr. Parsons offered for us to accompany him when he went to see Havering, and I would
That's
like
the
to
one that
take
I would
him-
like to go with. Yeah.
So we will, if
Tavern?
if you're willing to accompany me to the tavern, and then we
Tavern.
will meet up with Mr. Potterton and Miss Radcliffe a little
Tomorrow
later
morning.
on when the doctor makes his rounds to Havering.
Yeah,
Tomorrow
so
morning for Haverton.
that's going to be tomorrow morning.
This
You
evening,
can.
I believe.
I don't know that's tomorrow morning. This evening he's going to
Okay.
Salzburg, and then he's going to look into Copeland's body overnight. You can head home, or you could stay in town. It would be a little. You'd probably stay at the Four Feathers or something like that. Otherwise, you could head home and just meet him independently at Stornley House is where the Haverings are. You could just meet him there and then go in.
I mean, if there is any risk that there's some kind of infection, I think perhaps not remaining in a locale that would have that is a good idea.
That's
Yes.
probably a good call.
And also, I have
And
more books and
We
things
this
to-
evening we may wish to take a stroll in the grounds nearby, which happen to be the North Lake House, and you never know who you might run into.
Well, if there are
Or
new
what?
North Lakes, then I think
Taking
it
the
would,
shotgun.
if there are new North Lakes and they're willing to take haulers, then as the resident reverend, it would be appropriate for me to give my regards and extend an invitation to church on Sunday.
Oh, we really should before Choke gets to them, honestly.
Oh.
We're not putting self-interest entirely aside.
I love it that you said what we were all thinking.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a point where like the Reverend Sam's face says everything it needs to, which is, I didn't say that. I did not say it.
I'm just a woman. I'm allowed to say silly things.
If I get
decidedly not silly, Miss Wentworth,
but like she's allowed. Like it's accepted. She's a gossipy. She can just say that. It's fine.
I think you actually fully managed to draw just the ever so slight edge of a smile from the Reverend with that comment.
And I think I'd probably not say. That is probably something you'd say. Is we'll take a stroll this evening, perhaps call in on the North Lakes, because I have mentioned to Abigail that we would put in a word.
Yeah.
And I think I'd probably drop the, and it's reasonable, I think, for the Reverend's fiance to want to grow his parsonage and his patronage at his congregation in the same way that she wants her husband to be treating more of the gentry.
Absolutely, and she'll promise to put in a
same
good word for the
sentiment.
Reverend. She does a lot of we've always attended Reverend Jennings. They've not. They've definitely played both sides.
But that's okay.
Jim, did you want to clarify something?
I might have, before they vanish, I might quickly try and get a word with Emma, actually, briefly, but I can do that when it...
what's going to happen, departing Dr. Parsons, he's going to gather some of his things and quickly leave. You're going to walk along the main road, and you're going to go right past the Four Feathers Inn, and then you're going to continue on the main road down towards the Pillings, so... because they live on sort of the outskirts of town. So during that walk, there will be ample opportunity for the four of you to speak semi-privately or to draw off into individuals, whatever you should please.
I think if Potterton takes an opportunity to drop back and speak with Miss Wentworth, then the Reverend might take an opportunity to step forward and speak with Miss Radcliffe.
Okay, well...
that they've had much of interaction.
Perfect. Well, in that case, Mr. Potterton and Miss Wentworth, I'll pass across to the two of you first.
Yeah.
Very quickly, Miss Wentworth, if you don't mind me saying, because of course Miss Wentworth was there in the mausoleum. We saw me cowering.
Saw you vomiting.
Once you've seen a man vomit, he's got nothing to hide.
We're fast friends.
That's the true colors.
If all of this, well, and that seems to, I was just thinking, I almost got one of my horses and just went down to check. Is it worth checking for footprints around the mausoleum? Anything like that? It would just seem foolish not to check if there were.
It certainly is. I think the Reverend and I may take a stroll this evening with several purposes in mind.
Well, my estate is just a bit north of the North Lakes. If you need horses, or if you need a place, I can you can speak to, and I'll mention my staff and give words so that they can access be given. I don't think that I don't think I'd be welcome around, whereas you might be.
Right. And I will keep that in mind. However, I do believe that they are ghastly beasts who can sense my fear.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That's all I had to. Good.
I have 5 in ride. Don't make me do it.
Do not put me on a horse. We will all die. Perfect. All right. As the two of you are talking just ahead, Reverend Jennings and Miss Radcliffe have a quiet word.
Quick question.
Lingering silence.
Quick question as a complete aside to that. By default, drive auto is 20 and ride is 5. Would that not make sense that ride would be 20 by default
pretty
for
sure
everyone?
I checked it and it's still 5.
That's hilarious.
Horses, as Alex has aptly fickle and nasty creatures, prone to killing the people that try and ride them.
But
Not-
so were cars
okay.
in the 1920s, so what's the difference really?
I was gonna be like, horses aren't fickle and and then I remember the time that a horse walked me under a low branch to push me off a tree, like push me off the saddle extremely slowly
Yeah.
and with intent.
That is
So
hilarious.
Here's the
Yeah.
important reason. That's because you all have drive carriage at 20.
Oh, heck.
there you go. So
I'm
we
gonna
can
put that
control a
on.
horse hitched to a carriage.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that's-
ride is base 5s.
I did put points in ride because I figured it's something I had learned. So
Yeah, hell yeah,
I
of
may
course.
lean into horses.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect.
Yeah, I think it's just a pleasant, like, because I don't know that I've had almost like any interaction with Miss Radcliffe. You know, so it's just Miss Radcliffe. I'm sorry that you were previously unwell. I'm glad to see you're back on your feet. I hope you don't mind the question, but where do you hail from originally? I know you've been
Yes,
staying with Mr. Potterton for some time. But...
I was asked that last session, and I did go to my notes to double check where I come from, and the answer to that question about where I come from was Buckwell.
Where? Okay, so
Over the Brandybuck River.
Dave,
Yeah,
how far away is Buckwell?
reasonably. Yeah, it's within the same, like, I want to say, like, county or something. It's, like, right up to the north.
Might take a few days to perhaps get a message
That's
there.
right. Longer even. Were you to, like, hoof it? Yeah, sorry. You could fang it in a couple days.
Lovely. Would I happen to know who the local pastor would be in that area? I give
Oh.
you-
You
not.
genuinely
No.
probably know. You could make
Yeah, no.
make a luck roll.
No,
Okay.
no.
Purely, this is genuinely, like, this is not me trying to find
No.
anything out. This is just me making pleasant conversation.
And then
More than
finding
anything.
things out.
I don't.
Not this
I'm
time
not-
though.
Yeah. Not familiar with Buckwell or the well, I'm familiar with Buckwell, but who manages the parsonage there?
Why, that would be Reverend
Well, Buck.
Van. Van Desk.
Reverend
No.
He's back, baby.
No, what's an old timey name?
honestly.
No, it wouldn't be Smith. It'd be like something fancy.
Harrow.
Reverend Harrow. Oh, I like
Yeah,
that.
Harrow
That
is
sounds
cool.
like a spooky kind of horror name.
Yeah,
Reverend
it's like-
Harrow, of course. Ooh, no,
Meanwhile,
actually, hold on.
flashes to
I,
Reverend
no,
Harrow.
no, no,
Jane
no,
says
no, no,
Reverend
no.
Harrow,
Additions.
and she's like, "Wait, I should have picked Harrow for my name. Damn, that's cool."
That's cool as
I
hell.
don't. I'm okay
Actually,
with
no,
making
it's
the
Reverend
name
Radcliffe.
up.
I'm Mrs. Harrow.
I'm okay with making the name up, but I would like to make an acting role to make sure I've done my research on Buckwell and can adequately answer that question truthfully.
You may make an
just
acting
so I
role.
can say
And actually, Jackson, you
haven't
can
made it up.
You can go as far as to do it with a bonus dice, as this is a persona you've used before.
prepared for it, of course. Yeah. So I can say with confidence that it is Reverend Harrow because I looked that up.
You've also gone so far as you've like actually like planted. Yeah, you have a pretty reasonably solid backstory.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely, all of these questions are just like, making polite conversation.
Of course.
Reverend
Yes.
Harrow. Oh, yes, I'm not familiar
All right.
with the man.
If you're making fun conversation about me, I'm going to turn it back on you right away.
Get him.
And
Riposte.
I should say, Mr. Waterton did me the honor of relaying quite a tale to me on the carriage ride here, apparently. Well, the three of you were involved in quite a significant incident at the North Lakes last year, and well, I'd just like to say I'm quite glad that you all, well, that you made it out in one piece. I'm sure that you had no small part in that, Reverend. You seem to be a very capable man.
Very kind of you to say, Miss Radcliffe. I will, depending on how much Mr. Potterton explained to you, I would be surprised to hear that you have taken it quite so well. Are you a fan of 3-volume novels, perhaps?
Well, yes, I have been known to lose myself in narratives. But yes, Mr. Potterton was very forthcoming. But I mean, you know how he gets. He's quite enthusiastic when he wants to be.
But Mr. Potterton is quite enthusiastic. It's a very generous trait. tell me, Miss Radcliffe. He's shown some attention in your direction, I believe. Yes.
Oh,
if I might
has
be
he?
so.
I wasn't sure. Well, I suppose now that you mention it, perhaps, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what he really thinks, you know. Men are so good at hiding their feelings sometimes. Should they have them at all? One sometimes wonders.
Just Mr. Potterton, as I'm sure you're aware, is quite a eligible young man, and well, there has been more than one young lady taking an interest in him. So if you should find yourself interested in getting to better acquainted with Mr. Potterton, I would give you gentle forewarning that it may put you at odds with a number of the young ladies in town. Which is not, of course, to discourage you, madam, just some considerate, reverently advice.
Thank you. I hadn't considered how the length of my stay might seem to others in the town.
One thing that it is a little delicate, Miss Radcliffe, and I do apologise for asking such a thing, but it is interesting that the doctor did make a note that everyone who was affected by this sleeping sickness so far came from either labouring or some kind of mercantile class. Is your family recently come into the wealth you clearly hold, or is this a I understand this is delicate, madam, but I'm just trying to find whether there is any sort of through line with this, or whether there's something. Yeah,
I will say it's super delicate to the point that I might ask you to make an etiquette roll, please, to try and weave that in without possibly risking.
I mean, explicitly,
offense. Basically, Miss Radcliffe can just shut this conversation the hell down if she wants, more or less.
I think if it is that delicate, then perhaps I will say, like, this is what he found. Does this seem a likely connection to you, madam, or not?
I think that might be the etiquette role, is finding that thread there.
Sure.
Just curious. Do you know if it was in the book or not? If the etiquette of the sort of gentry was something that that everyone else was aware of? As like if you were from kind of like a working class background, if you would understand that there is all this coded stuff, even if you can't affect it.
Yeah, you know there's codes, you just don't know how to do them. It's like it's a little loaded. Look, if you're fully down, if you're like working, you know, if you're a laborer working in the field, you know how you're supposed to address the person you're working for, things like that. But honestly, it's not a part of your day-to-day life as nearly as much. It's very much, it's a hobby people have because they don't have better things to be doing. Overcomplicating social. Yeah.
Well, then I am quite adept.
You are
at dealing with delicate situations, both for the gentry and not. So
you're kind of able to weave it into a reasonably direct question without causing offense. And if Miss Radcliffe dodges it at this point, it's a little.
Yeah, no, yeah. With the success, I got to pay it. It's a valid question. I will say no, because that's a better story. I'll say, oh no, my family has had some modest holdings near.
Buckwell?
What the fuck was it called?
What the fuck? Well,
Buckwell for a few generations at least. Although we have rather fallen on harder times recently, and in fact, it's one of the main reasons I haven't returned. The loss of our carriage from those bandits a short few months ago means, I feel quite awkward about coming back with less than I left with, given my family is in such hard times. In fact, I haven't been as openly communicative with them as perhaps a good daughter should be, and I'd very much appreciate it if that remains the case. You understand the position I'm in.
I'm sorry to hear that your family would rather deal with the potential loss of their daughter than the loss of a carriage. That is.
Well, I just don't want to make things harder for them than things already are. I think that's my duty.
Yes. Well, thank you, Miss Radcliffe. That does rather stymie that particular line of investigation.
Yes, it does.
So then we must find something other than classes of connection. The Reverend
must.
fully, like, you are fully aware that the Reverend had this as a solid plan, and you have completely, like, cut through any possible chance that he uses this, which is the most likely connection, to find a solution.
But you haven't given me the idea, so now I can take that, and now I've got all the cards.
Give me your
I would
cards.
also, Dave, like to make a psychology roll in this moment.
Oh, please do.
Wait, to what end? Before you're on, just want to set the stakes.
Just in terms of, like, I asked a very specific question about, like, where you came from and what have you.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that, like, I disbelieve it, but the fact that this is, like, every other person doesn't, it's more, is she holding something back because she is new and she is new to money and doesn't want to sound like she is, or is this legit? So it's not is she lying?
Also,
it's just is she trying to, like, hide some mystery?
Mr. Potterton mentioned the idea of a dark horse coming into Tarryford, and here stands one who is known to have, and like not specifically like this. There is a possible thread of Miss Radcliffe and this. Yeah, go ahead and make a psychology.
Very specifically, it's not that I don't believe Miss Radcliffe is Miss Radcliffe. Just this. Yeah. I'm not quite willing to drop this thread without a Yeah,
get a vibe check.
Well, I just want to say I have full faith that no one's metagaming. I'm happy to fill the dice to decide when 100%. If this story comes in relevant. Should I make an opposed roll with acting?
I think you've already succeeded an acting role in this scene, and this is backstory, sure, and that's kind of what this is looking into. I think this is gonna success might get some insight into just how you're feeling. Hard and extreme will draw out.
Oh, well, in that case, you did offer me a bonus die before, which I didn't roll.
Oh, did you not say? Okay. Oh, well, that's a really
I didn't roll
good
that. So I've just rolled a 0-2.
No, there is a bonus. There's a bonus dice just under it. You rolled a 37 twice.
What?
Right under the acting. Oh. Sorry. Yeah, that's the etiquette.
No, that was my roll. Okay, great. Yeah. No, I did roll 37 times. Okay. I was looking at the wrong roll. That's fine. Yes. All right. So regular success.
I'm gonna flag straight out. I'm not using luck for this because that feels unfair. Because it's just what's the vibe. So.
This is 100%.
Maybe you spot the torn bit of dress or something.
Nothing. That's very reasonable.
Also, Miss Radcliffe, as the story comes out with, there's definitely it's not suspicion of the story, but as you said, it's of how she's acting. I think, Jackson, if I can speak for you, you also are a bit unwell. Genuinely, the probably read you get is actually, it's summer, she's walked a long way, I hope she's feeling all right. You've probably taken Reverend's arm a little bit, and you're a tad vulnerable.
With that, I do express kind of genuine condolences that your family is more concerned about the loss of a carriage than the loss of a daughter, and absolutely, I'm sorry to stress you with this potential topic of conversation, Miss Radcliffe. Tell me, do you enjoy flowers? I think he just tries to find some because the kind of things that young ladies did, press flowers, so screens, just
a
something
hobby
to make the conversation immediately lighter and pleasant is where he goes. He's not good at it. It is absolutely that awkward, but you can immediately tell he's just trying to find conversation.
Yeah.
So you like stuff?
Pretty much.
Pretty cool, huh?
I got out of that mess, all right.
Nicely done. All right. As the four of you arrive at the crossroads, you will see the Four Feathers Tavern. It's a squat-wide two-story building with people coming and going, horses being stabled. And it definitely is at the center of town and very much a meeting place for a lot of people. There will be a lot of folks coming through here. And it definitely stands to reason that should a traveler have come through here, this would have likely been their first stop. Remaining here will be Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth, who can bid good evening to Miss Radcliffe and Mr. Potterton, who will attend Dr. Parsons on his route. Is the intent to meet up again tonight, or will you all be returning home and then meeting once more at the Haverings Stornley house on the morrow?
Yeah.
I also absolutely, if after that conversation with Miss Radcliffe, will aside to George Potterton and just say that Miss Radcliffe has walked quite far today, and perhaps it would be best to consider a carriage or some such for the remainder of your journey and or on the way home. That the young lady is putting on a brave face, but I do not think she is quite as well as...
The doctor had a carriage, didn't he? Or like a...
He did. Oh, yes, that's right. That's true. And he would... That's actually a good thought. This is probably stopping and the two of you depart in the carriage. Good reminder. This is be far enough, and he's trying to get like ahead of the town. Yeah, he would.
But still,
like
essentially on the way home, make sure you're taking a carriage. And very specifically, Miss Radcliffe is putting on a brave face. I do not think she's quite as well as she is letting on. So I would suggest perhaps retiring a little earlier for the evening.
Good point. I mean, we are with a doctor on the plus side. We're probably the best place to be. But yes, I completely hear you.
Entirely from a place of care, and also because that's funny to be like, you should make sure she has an early night and doesn't get up to anything because she's clearly unwell.
Or let her out of your sight.
Let her have a play with your keys for your house. I think she'd feel better if you showed her where the safe is. I think that's what.
Well, that's why they call it a safe. Very quickly, Dave, previous session, I did come down in a carriage, which means that like I've got a horse somewhere here.
Yeah.
The carriages, I don't know what the doctor's carriage is like. Also, I'd like showing off to Miss Radcliffe.
Yeah, do you want to be riding yours?
I jump on my horse then and ride alongside the carriage.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, show off. There's a good line in when they're talking about the carriages in the book, which is like the type you drive speaks quite a bit about the person using it. The standard being like a 4-person or something. And what would happen is like the hot young bachelors drive these like pseudo racing carriages that can only seat 2, so they can turn up to some hot young thing, ask them to take a while, and be like, sorry, no room for your escort, and then leave behind the old maid that's traipsing around with them to just tear around town and speak privately. So what I wonder is, Mr. Potterton, in your Batmobile, is it a 4-seater or a 2-seater?
I actually think it is a 4-seater. Unfortunately, I think I
you
would
just filled it with stuff in the back. So
well, I probably wanted to get a 2-seater for my next big gift for myself, but decided to get a sword or something instead because I'd been traumatized into mythos. But I probably used my father's old one because although the family
you probably have a few carriages. You guys have stuff. It's liquid money. Yeah.
Oh, did we say last session whether you bought that one white horse that Captain Stowe once rode?
Oh yeah.
Is that what we said?
I think we did say that you purchased it. I think we did say that you purchased it.
The Northlakes would have had to sell some stuff.
Yeah.
In which case, I would not deign to have it pull a carriage. So it's the equivalent of my cool samurai sword that I get out in the final acts. It's
you're gonna come out late at night and see Mr. Potterton just in like his jocks feeding it apples. It's going like, this horse rules. This horse is so cool.
I call it Captain.
Oh.
Gorgeous. Okay. Well, in that case, Mr. Potterton on his own vehicle could probably, in that case, yours is the finer carriage, and Dr. Parsons would gratefully, if you would simply deposit him on the return, or he can walk and take in the town. So you drop off Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth and continue on your circuit. We'll park the Reverend and Miss Wentworth there for a moment and remain with Mr. Potterton and Miss Radcliffe as you continue along the main road. This would not be the way that you came into town, but you're, Mr. Potterton, you're very familiar with it. Miss Radcliffe, this would be your first time probably coming through this area, unless you had a little private canvas earlier. You're coming to a more... It's like a poorer section of the town. This is where a lot of laborers work. It's a lot of smaller, sort of a bit more jammed together housing. It's not like crazy squashed. There's still space. There's nothing stopping someone building a house a little bit further away. But the people here sort of like rely on one another. And you can see a small house where the Pillings live. And out the front, there's a large, like, I want it to be a Hills hoist, like a laundry line or something like that. There are a number of them where Mrs. Pillings takes in clothes, washes them, and hangs them out. You can see from here that a number of clothes have been left out and have since gone through that cycle of rained on, dried, rained again, are currently a bit too wet to bring in, and have clearly not been tended to in some time.
Dave, how do you know about my laundry habits?
Because they're my laundry habits sometimes. Dr. Parsons Mr. Potterton pulls up. Dr. Parsons steps down, promises to introduce you, and strides forward towards the house. He will rap on the doorway, and it is Miss Newman who answers it. She's the younger sister of Mrs. Pilling, at sort of like 27 or so, and she is as yet unmarried and kind of would be looking to find employment or something in the area. She opens the door, says, "Dr. Parsons, I'm so glad you came. I'm sorry to say they've shown no signs, and truth be told, I'm beginning to become a little concerned. They'll wake soon, won't they? I think we must try something else. I want to send away to the apothecary and try another tincture." Dr. Parsons quiets her down, steps inside and says, "Before we begin, Miss Newman, I'd like you to introduce you to Mr. Potterton and Miss Radcliffe. Now, there's good news. Miss Radcliffe here was afflicted by the same sleeping sickness that takes your sister and her husband. I'm fortunate to say that this morning she woke, and I think you'll find she's quite well."
Quite, yes. I can feel my strength regaining hour by hour just in this short day, and so there is hope for everyone yet. I'm quite sure of it.
You must tell me what brought you back to life. Do you remember anything from your slumber?
Well, I suppose it was just the perfect care of Dr. Parsons here and Mr. Potton's hospitality. But well, I'm sure if there is any doctor in the county who can do it, who can keep pull folks through this, it's Dr. Parsons here. As for the sickness itself, only strange fever dreams, the sort of the mind playing tricks, the mind, imagining imagining a place as far from sickness as it can. But I did want to follow the doctor around just in case there was any insight I could provide.
Yes, and Miss Newman, if you take us to them now, that would be kind. Miss Newman opens the door, takes the three of you, and says, I'm desperate. I'm so sorry. Maggie would be, well, aghast to know that there's such fine folks as yourselves here and in the state that it's in, but I've had little time to clean, and truth be told, I'm trying to get a hand on some of the work that I've done, but caring for them is, well, it's draining. Just the two of them. They'll take no food. I need to cook and strain a broth between their lips, and I hope it gives them some sustenance, or if not, it's quite enough. Come through here. She leads you through a sort of winding little house and towards one of the back rooms where, laid out on the bed they sleep in, husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Pilling. They have been changed. Actually, sorry, they were already in their sleeping clothes because they simply slept and never woke. They have since been changed and washed a couple times and are currently sort of like underneath the covers where they're attempting to sort of sweat out whatever is happening. There is a bowl to the side where cool water and a towel is placed with them, and there are already like worried footsteps worn into the wood nearby where Miss Newman has basically paced for several days straight. The two of them look quite unwell. Mr. Potterton, you recall Miss Radcliffe in her slumber, and she never got quite to this state. They have sunken cheeks. They have like deep, like black lines almost underneath their eyes. Their lips are cracked and dry to the point of bleeding if they opened, and they look almost dead, except that their chest still rises and falls. They have a sort of like a grayish complexion. Dr. Parsons does not seem surprised by this. This is not a sudden development. He steps over towards them, snaps open his case, and begins to conduct some simple tests on the two of them. Miss Newman goes to you, Miss Radcliffe, and clasps her hands and says, "Would you pray over them, please? Would you touch them and pray?"
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Join me. And she sits on the side, takes her sister's hand, takes yours, and bows her head and begins to whisper under her breath.
I'd very much like to stay close and just see if I can hear any of the mutterings that will sound familiar to me, because at this point, with what Georgie boy has told me, there may be something occult happening here.
Do you want to make, I'll ask you to make a listen roll, and because not immediately on the surface, they're not speaking as you did. And Mr. Potterton, what would you like to do?
I think I actually I haven't really had an opportunity to come across dead or dying people much. I think I'm a little. I probably step outside. I'll give the room, and I'm just going to. I'm going to make some excuses. I'll search the house if I can while everyone's occupied.
Sure.
But
Wow.
yeah. I think I
yeah. So I would ask you to make what I'd be most keen for would be a psychology roll for getting a feel for basically how the Pillings live. I could also see accounting if you want to get a sense, genuinely like a sense of their finances and where things come and go.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was thinking for. Otherwise, I'd be pretty happy to make a spot hidden. I think I get out and I kind of like. I think George would be a great mythos investigator as long as he never has to actually do anything mythos related. Like all the side stuff is really. I want to look through. I'm thinking, in my head, they were paid to do something which exposed them to a threat. Is what I'm working on. So I'm looking for an unusual payment, an unusual item, or an unusual set of clothing. Maybe if they were paid to like go somewhere exotic, they might have not cleaned off their boots or something.
Yeah, and carried back the deed. Go ahead and give me. So I'll ask for a listen roll from Miss Radcliffe and an accounting roll from Mr. Potterton.
Okay.
Ooh, that's worth 5 points of luck.
Okay. That's going to be a success from Miss Radcliffe. We'll resolve that first, and Miss Potterton, you can consider if you'd like to push or luck this roll. Miss Radcliffe, as you sit there, you can hear under her breath Miss Newman whispering through one of the prayers, something similar. And underneath that, there's the very shaky, raspy breath of Maggie Pilling, who is lying in the bed nearby. You can just make out what sounds like an attempt to whisper or to speak. It's raspy and kind of coded in it, but she says, "I following John," and calling out to her husband, who's sitting just under me. She says, "Behind and following." It does seem as though there's something happening. She's somewhere in her dreams, but her eyes don't move and she's completely still.
Sorry, John is her husband?
John is her husband.
Yeah. Not a common name.
On a success, tell you what, at the same time she calls to John, her husband will say her name. Almost responding as if lying next to it, he hears it. Say Matt.
Almost as if they're in the same place in their dream.
Or simply beside one another in bed.
Yeah, okay, Dave.
Both are true.
Your presence does not seem to stir them awake. They lie completely still. And Dr. Parsons goes through his routine checks. As he looks up to you at one point, he'll make eye contact with you while Miss Newman still got her eyes closed, and he'll let a very sort of like subtle and somber shake of the head that things have not improved and are continuing.
Can I don't know if this would be like an odd thing to do, but I'm inclined to like talk to her just to see if I can get through. Like maybe if I ask her if she's seeing the things that I saw in the dream, then that's more likely to get through to her than just like, hey, how you doing? This
is going to be quite strange, and where Miss Newman is looking for you to just pray over them, this is moving. That said, if you try and come at this from a position of authority, she's pretty keen to grab onto anything. If you say this is something that you experience, maybe that might
yeah, I'll say it's worth a shot.
Okay.
I might do something a bit strange. Maybe if they're having similar dreams to the ones I have, if I speak to that, might be able to get through to them. I don't know. It's probably not supportable by any kind of medical evidence, and it's probably just a silly flight of fancy. But since I'm here, I suppose it couldn't do any harm.
You mentioned that you had similar dreams.
Oh, it's possible. It's possible that the same sickness invokes the same kinds of dreams, isn't it?
I suppose. I mean, they're quiet most of the time, but every now and then, while I'm sitting by the chair waiting for them at night, I'll wake. I think they've awoken, I scurry to the bed, and they're only speaking in their sleep. But sometimes it's a shout of terror or a yell of surprise. Whatever their dreams are, I'm afraid they're not pleasant. I'm grateful when they're still and, well, as well as they can be. If you want to try and speak to them, no, please, speak.
I think it should do no harm. Maggie, are you there in the forest with the cool blue water pools? The Black Forest? Worth a shot?
Can you give me a
power roll?
Give me a power roll.
Yeah.
Give me a power roll.
Hey!
On a hard success, you try and speak out to him.
Sorry.
There is a.
Jay's got what?
They seem to lie completely still, and there is no discernible.
On a hard. Now, what about on extreme, Dave?
At the very
I
least,
can't
12 points of luck.
I can't guarantee.
You can't guarantee it. Come on.
Action. I cannot guarantee it.
Well, I think it's worth it.
You spending?
We're not getting any luck improvements this scenario, are we?
No. This is the luck you'll
Got
have till the end of the
60.
scenario.
It's 12 points. It's a fifth of my luck. I think it's worth it. I think if this gives us a big kind of leg up, let's do it. 12 points of luck.
What are you saying?
Are you there in the forest with the black trees? That's my dream. I'm describing kind of my dream.
Black
and
trees
just
are
kind of
big,
like, yeah, basically trying to connect to them on that basis, being like, hey, I know where you are. So because I know where you are, you should kind of focus where I am. We've got a connection going on here.
You mentioned the black trees, you mentioned the forest, and
it was like a blue, like an electric blue pool of something.
there was a cool blue lake, which is what you recall.
Yeah.
That's the last thing you remember drinking from it.
Did I drink from it and then I woke up?
That's the last thing you remember. And the
By
dream's already
drinking from the lake. The lake brought me back.
As you mentioned
It'll
that,
bring you back.
underneath her breath, very faintly, you do hear a response, and she says, "Can't hunt it down." And Miss Newman screams as you respond. She takes a big step back and says, Dr. Parsons, she's talking. Dr. Parsons scurries over, takes her thing, and says, Miss Radcliffe, keep speaking to her, see if you can draw some kind of response. And John, nearby, begins to get a very faint tremor as he just shakes ever so slightly. And then, what do you say?
What is it? What's hunting you? You don't need to go far. Just the lake. Just drink the lake.
Faceless.
What is it?
Faceless between us, trees. And John says, "It's here. It's here. Maggie, run. It's here." And Dr. Parsons takes the things as his pace starts to quicken. He says, "Miss Radcliffe, something's happening. Keep talking to them." And she starts to go, "No.
Maggie, it's all right. It's all right. You don't have far to go. It's just to the lake. If you make it to the lake, you can make it.
John says,
John will be all right. We're here too. We've got John.
John says, "Run, Maggie," through cracked lips, and blood begins to split and pool. And she says, "No." And then suddenly her heartbeat quickens and John begins to jerk and twitch in his bread. Dr. Parsons reaches across and tries to hold him down, and he says, "Miss Radcliffe, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." They're responding. There's been no response so far.
The trees, they're black, Maggie. They'll hide you. The black trees, they're dark and they're in shadows, and you can use the shadows, Maggie. Use the shadows to make it to the lake.
Maggie's heart goes, and suddenly John lets out this gasp, and then suddenly under his breath he seems to just go, Maggie! And then suddenly his heart basically thunders one more time, stops, and Dr. Parsons stops, and then races over to him. I don't know where we're at on chest compressions, but he tries to restart a stopped heart. He races across towards John, and Maggie, you can now feel her thing thundering, is going, "No, John! No, John! No, John!" Miss Newman is standing back and just screaming. Mr. Podden, you can hear this and return to the room as you hear yells begin to erupt from the room. Miss Radcliffe, she seemed to be responding to you though. What do you tell her?
Just there's more of the same thing. I think, if you can get to the lake, the water will bring you back. The water brought me back. Maggie, I was there where you are, and I made it back, and you can too.
Her pulse begins to quicken, and she's speaking under her breath, but there's a pause for a moment. Mr. Potterton, what are you doing?
Can I? I don't think I'm going to be able to get through to her, but can I say to the doctor, do you have a stimulant? I'm thinking if I jab Maggie with something, like it's going to give her a jolt in Dreamland. Yeah, I'm genuinely thinking, like, can we boost her getting to the
I tell you what, I've got his character sheet. Let's see what old Dr. Parsons is capable of. Got the sheet, but I didn't fill it out. 1 second, because I think this is going to be relevant. Dr. Parsons.
Obviously, if he needs doctors, I know that there was a ubiquitous of like a lot of like drugs, like
all kinds of fun stuff.
1800s. So in doctor's
stuff.
bag, if he has a hit to try and speed her up.
Dr. Parsons has 60% in medicine. I think that's the closest we're going to go. Jim, can you just give me a D100 roll? And we're going for under 60 here for medicine.
Fantastic.
I think he's going to a regular success will get something, hard and more will get us more progress here. Oh,
nice.
That's an extreme. Dr. Parsons reaches into his bag, pulls out a powdered, like a bag of some powder, passes it across to you, and says in the mouth as quickly as you can.
I've partied.
I don't fucking know what drugs are.
I dose her as best I can, and keep like eyeing Miss Radcliffe. I'm trying not to take up the conversation point, but hopefully this gets her going.
This is amazing. Also, and Nephinos just pointed out in chat that they mostly use bellows to try and resuscitate. So Dr. Parsons has these like bellows out and he's heaving them into John's mouth to try and bring him back. You race across and jam some of this powder across her John's, and suddenly her pace quickens further, and then you can hear under her breath just, "It's there. Cool. Blue. John." And then a pause, and then there's a flutter in her eyes, and they begin to open. And
damn.
She sees you first, Miss Radcliffe, and then her eyes focus across at her sister, and she says, through like super dry mouth, "I've had the most peculiar dream. I'm sorry, I'm not dressed for company."
If I can dive on and try and not let her see her dying husband as best I can, even if it's not potentially the most appropriate.
There is like a of the bellows as it goes. You would have to basically physically get in the bed to stop. I
think I probably go to like manhandle her out of the room. Even if it's like, I'm very happy to stop immediately.
She has been bedridden for so long that you would have to carry her from it. Miss Newman is continuing to scream as this is all happening as well.
You get her out of the room first. That's not helping.
Sounds good.
All right, you grab her and bring her out. She's kind of blearily, and you can also see like her eyes are like crusted with sleep, and she's having trouble focusing for a moment. She's seeing you. She says, "I'm not dressed for company," and she pulls it across.
Maggie, it's all right. You've been unwell, but Dr. Parsons is here looking after you. You've had an awful time of it, but everything's all right now.
Your voice. I've heard your voice.
Yes, I was here talking to you. I'm Jane Radcliffe. I'm here helping Dr. Parsons, and we're all here helping you.
Why is Lucy screaming? Why is she crying? John, where's John? And she puts a hand out, and she feels his hand under the covers, and you can see her grip it. And she's turning to look at him.
John's here, but John's sick as well, and John's still sleeping, and you'll be able to see him soon. This is a reassure. I got 20 in reassure.
Absolutely.
I got 20 in reassure. This is not going to go well. Nice.
She hears that, looks over towards it, just as Dr. Parsons withdraws the bellows from John's mouth. And wiping like the sweat from his forehead, looks across you, shakes her hand, and then just says, "Maggie, I'm sorry. He's gone." And she devoid of, with not enough liquid to cry, will just sort of like rack and begin to pull over. Still kind of in that half-woken state, completely mentally and physically drained, where you have the equivalent of like a penalty die at this point. This is like unable, like struggling to think, seeing through haze, not comprehending, still not sure if she's even fully awake. And as she crawls over, she will say, they should have taken me. They should have taken me. And she just holds onto her husband. And Dr. Parsons is going to stand up and say, I think we should leave them. There's some space, Miss Radcliffe.
Oh, yes, I suppose if that's the recommendation. I don't know. She seems to need some company, and her sister isn't her sister. Is that right?
Her sister, Miss Newman,
isn't in a place to provide it.
I'll check in on them, but Miss Newman will have to manage for some time. There are others that are still, struck by this illness, and it seems there's more to discuss as to the connection between them. Your speaking to them did seem to draw some. Listen, let us go and speak with Miss Newman, explain the situation, and take John. Needs to be washed, and I think, although she's only woken, Maggie needs some. Mrs. Pilling needs some rest.
Very, very well. Maybe just a few moments for her to say goodbye would be appropriate.
Yes, be appropriate. I'll stay with them for now.
Perhaps I should. Yes.
Miss Newman is beginning to get back to herself. She's panicked and washed, but is capable, and Mr. Potterton is in the process of just having like a quiet word with her. As you come out, she takes your hand. She looks to you and says, "What did you do? What did you do?"
Oh, I just spoke to you, Maggie. I was here. And
no, sorry. This is Miss Newman. The sister, the surviving sister.
Gotcha. My bad.
So just outside the hallway.
We just spoke to her. That's all. I had the same sickness, you remember, and it seemed to help to understand what she was going through.
What devil's work is this? How can you? What is it that was wrong with my sister? And why didn't her husband come back?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. We did what we could.
Why was he laughing?
More questions than answers I have for you, Miss Newman.
I think we might need. I think I'd like to ask you to leave.
Oh, look at George.
We should, yes, Miss Radcliffe. Let's we'll wait for Dr. Parson outside, and my condolences.
Yes, thank you for speaking to her. But yes, I think yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. But yes, thank you.
Yes, but thank you. All right, we'll take a leave.
Just before we walk out, do you want sanity rolls from us?
I am going to ask the sanity rolls from each of you. I'm also going to say, Mr. Potterton, as you leave, you were that failure we're going to factor in as you being distracted by the call for things. As you were coming back, you found some like very basic accounts, like scratchings. There is you have that little tickle in your brain that just like loves it. You would love a spreadsheet. Mr. Potterton would really Roth Excel and things like that. You've noticed a void. It's not a big thing. There is a regular expense that was not being documented. And just a little bit of you kind of wish it's genuinely probably nothing. It wasn't a huge thing. It was probably just like they weren't recording the time. But just a little part of you is like, I wish those numbers added up. If you want to push this roll, you could try and basically remain in the house after I've been asked to leave.
I don't think I will. I think seeing all of this, I think I am just a bit shook, and I go, I'll probably come back to it from a different angle later, maybe via someone else's.
It's also probably nothing. Very minor. Can I get sanity rolls from me?
Ooh, that's surprising.
It is.
I thought I'd be okay.
We're off to a good start. Okay, I am gonna. It only witnessing this is going to be 1 point to each of you.
Just a tickle.
Just a tickle. You step outside, and at one point, Dr. Parsons is going to come out. This kind of cut the thing short. He's going to tell you he's going to remain here for a little while to just basically check that Maggie is okay. And then he's going to speak with his wife and arrange for John to be taken. Basically, he's going to remain here for a little while. If you want to stay, you can. He might be at some time.
I think we've been asked to leave. I think it's better if we get on our way.
Dr. Parsons may need a ride back.
He's happy to walk. He will say, Miss Radcliffe, I'm not sure what you did, but truly I don't know what you did. I'm as tempted as anything to leave the sentence there. I urge caution. Our one is returned, one is dead.
I understand. I should think you would like to process tonight's events in your own capacity, and perhaps we should all return home for now.
I appreciate it. Truth told, I don't know how I'll process, but something is happening, and it seems. I'm glad I contacted you, Mr. Potterton, and Miss Radcliffe. I'm glad you're well and assisting. The four of you have as much understanding of this as I can, and I fear more capability. I'll stay with them. I'll make sure Maggie is well. I'll speak with you in the morning, and if you're still in town, you can call upon me this evening. I suspect I'll get little rest tonight, as I now have 2 bodies to expect.
If you find yourself with restless hours and you won't be busy over the bodies for a moment, I think the stimulant, anything that might bolster a body as if in war, that would be useful.
I tried some mild stimulants earlier and seemed only to quicken the heart, and I feared it would not rouse them, only make them more ill. Something in the direction given by Miss Radcliffe, I think. But yes, I will prepare another tonic. It's expensive, and I'm afraid the bill must be settled, but we'll see to that when all is well. Thank you for your assistance, and good evening.
Thank you.
Dave.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, hit me.
Maybe not right now. Miss Radcliffe did a very weird thing, which had a very strange result.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge reputation hit.
Is it gonna fuck up my reputation?
Whoa.
Absolutely, it will.
I walked in there and I killed them.
Also, speaking of Dark Horse, yeah, actually, that's a really good point. Actually, I think that is an immediately thing. I think that might immediately spread. Miss Radcliffe.
And you were asked to leave. You were basically kicked out. It's almost as if you did get censored.
Miss Radcliffe.
So, like, you weren't asked to leave from. You were asked to leave from a lower class person's abode. That's like.
She was also in a status. Go ahead.
But like the fact that it wasn't even like you're gentry. You can kind of go where you want. But if someone's like you gotta leave, like that's.
It's a big deal.
There was a level you could have put force the matter, but I don't actually know if you could just go no. I'd be a bit fucked. Go ahead and give me a reputation roll, and yeah, this is absolutely you're probably getting a hit regardless, even with this is hilarious. This is stopping it going lower. 2
characters in a row to take the reputation dive. Down we go.
Can you go ahead and lose a d6 for me? I think this is absolutely something that this will spread like wildfire. Okay.
Just a tickle.
You did save
because I did save. Yeah, I did.
You did save somebody.
Maggie.
And as this reputation spreads, there will be, but all the same, this is scary stuff.
Yeah,
this is absolutely. They're gonna love this. They're gonna love this. Mr. Potterton, yeah, you might. You're a little more aware of some of the strangeness and things, but definitely since Miss Radcliffe has.
We heard the details back at the start. I think George knew there's something happening in dreams and is completely at the point of 100%.
All right, we'll park the 2 of you there. You can return towards your carriage. It's not yet night necessarily, so you've got a little bit of time. And before we resolve the scenario, the session at least, we'll step in on Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth, who have travelled to meet with Alice Copeland at the Four Feathers, in the very heart of Tarryford. arriving, you can see it's busy. A number of people are working in are enjoying a drink, and as it now comes into dinner, they are all enjoying their luncheon. Alice Copeland is easily recognized as a very tired and very overworked woman who, although her husband literally died last night, does not have the ability to pause and deal with that. So she is still scurrying around, delivering drinks, and if anything, has more work laid upon her. She's stepping away and serving drinks and just seems... she's dealing with it, but is like one dropped knife away from tears and just complete breakdown. You also notice, as you step inside, there is right behind the bar, there's like a hole in the ground where you would go up and down to deliver like kegs to like take things in it. The hatch is not there, and she's stepping around it every time. It just seems like one extra thing. And there's one time she walks past, she just gives this like, ah, and then goes around. It's like, this, I cannot deal with this shit right now. Now the fucking place is falling apart too. As you come in, you will just be given a very general, sit wherever you want, I'll get to you when I can. And then she whirls away elsewhere.
Fair.
Is there anything you want to do before you are attended to? This is a very seedy pub, and the two of you are immediately a little bit like ooh, this ain't our scene. This is... you like genuinely feel like you're being looked at. There are some seedier looking figures. Like you would genuinely possibly feel a little bit threatened. It
might not be our scene, but I've been to another world apparently. So you know what, I think I can deal.
You could handle it.
Yep. Is there anyone here that would attend my congregation?
Well, yeah.
Yes. You know what? You're a little bit further out. Go ahead and make a. No roll needed. Yes, there will be someone in here that attends, but they're like a farmhand that comes every now and then. There's no major players.
Yeah. Just someone that I can like potentially, if it's like, if they're not in the middle of something, go up to, ask after their health and their family, say that it is very nice to see them, and then go and find a table, kind of as a way of...
remember, I'm the reverend, I deal with all types.
sort of going like, I know that technically two people of like the like higher class have walked in, but doing that like smoothing of of going, I'm still of the people enough that you can just ignore us.
100%. That makes sense. You can do that, and it kind of sets the scene of why you might be there as well to people. You find the cleaner of the tables, not that they're filthy, but in a corner. Seat yourselves there and just take in the space. Alice will get to you shortly. Like I said, you feel definitely a bit unwelcome, and there is also it goes beyond that. I'll actually ask each of you to make either psychology or spot hidden. Your choice. I take listen too, actually.
I'm not good at either of those. Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm good at psychology and listen, so I don't know which.
Dealer's choice. If you want to split the roles, you'll get information. Different things. Possible.
Spot hidden.
Okay.
No.
Give psychology.
Not this time.
I'm not observant.
Wall of red. Oh, there's a groan. Miss Wentworth, you're genuinely would probably be a little bit. Like you said, you've been to another world. I guess you're just rallying.
I'm interested
on that.
more than anything. I'm just interested, and I've never been to a pub like this before. I'm just excited and looking around, and
you're also probably following Alice and seeing what she has. Reverend,
it's really interesting what women are doing with their hair when they need to be working, and I'm just noticing things. I'm just looking around.
How they function. Reverend, there's the like level of like we're a little bit fish out of water here, and that's what you expected. This is going to be not quite your scene. It'll take a bit of it goes a half step beyond that and is approaching kind of a hostile vibe, and you're not quite sure what's doing it. And then you spot over in the corner is a single figure. It's a tall man with a scab growing on his chin and encroaching across his cheek, kind of like greasy hair, middle parted and pushed back, low hooded brows, and a knife underneath the table that he's working under the nails of one of his fingers. And as he sort of like stares across at it, he draws blood and then puts the finger into his like kind of blackened tooth mouth and sucks on it slightly. He is looking at you, and actually he's looking at Miss Wentworth in particular with what you would consider a nasty look, it looks as it's a mean man. He is sitting by himself with his back towards the table, and he has a flagon of some sort of like beer placed in front of him. You at least identify where the threatening feeling is coming from.
That's fair. I will lean over and just say, Miss Wentworth, please don't leave the table or go anywhere without company. Just
well, of course not. No, I've walked quite a lot today. It's quite nice to put my feet up.
This is a pleasant enough establishment, but not one that young ladies should be walking around unaccompanied. So, just a
quite
extra caution. I will not point the man out directly because I don't necessarily want to draw attention, but like it's very, you would be able to read absolutely that like I've spotted something.
Yeah, cool.
It's also once you identify and look at him, he stops like looking. Like he was kind of getting away with it for a while, and he goes back to his drink and stuff. But you definitely identify. After a little bit, Alice Copeland comes up, Mrs. Copeland, and cleans the table, takes a couple of other things, dots under her eyes slightly with the handkerchief, and then says, "Reverend, what can I do for you?"
Mrs. Copeland, I came in part to share my condolences. I realize you're quite busy now, so I do not wish to take up too much of your time. But
You've heard that the dreadful
yes,
the space and the timing, and he for weeks he just slept, and then last night it doesn't
terribly sad.
seem.
I would like to at this point like get up and like sort of offer to her, like, would you like to take a moment away?
Yeah.
Because I'm clearly a reverend.
Yep.
I don't think it would be inappropriate. And are there any other staff working?
Yeah, there's a couple of like young fellas.
Can I just sort of like wave someone else over and kind of just gently lead her into a side room and like obviously bring Emma along, but like sort of usher very much in this moment, purely going, relying very much on like my reputation and my role, going, could you come here? I would like to take this lady away for a moment.
You can.
To give her some space.
Just as you sort of like step around that hole in the ground and through the side door and into the back rooms, just as you cross the threshold, the dams break and open weeping.
I would also then, as I wave someone to come into like the front area, go, could you please also grab a glass of wine for Mrs. Copeland?
They're not yes, and move up and we'll return with one shortly, all kind of deftly skirting the hole in the ground. You close the door behind you so it's quiet, and after a while of weeping, you're able to sort of like pull her back to enough sensibility. She's kind of just saying like, you know, everything, Garrick is unwell, the place is falling apart, repairs aren't finished, and just to think that oh, it's all just so awful, Reverend.
Reassure.
Yeah.
I am gonna like, you know, I mean, she's not having a psychotic break, so I'm not sure it's entirely.
She's having
she's having an awful time, and I think like if I allow her to like grasp my arm or do whatever she needs to do in this moment to like release whatever this emotion is. It is very much a private thing. I do not judge people for needing, like, it's not to like touch people or like really let yourself go, but that's the point of having people like the Reverend in society, is they see you, and I guess doctors as well, they sort of see you in these vulnerable states, and there's a tacit agreement that like it's never spoken about, it's never gone, but you have a and I think like in this moment as well, Emma, like you would see very much the Reverend in his element. He's there, he's sort of patting her arm. When her handkerchief is clearly full, he pulls out his own without a moment's thought and hands it to her, and is making sort of just a lot of very gentle, reassuring, you know, there's nothing to try and cheer her up or make her see the good side. It is purely a place where she can just release, and he allows her to come back to herself in her own time before offering anything other than just gentle sounds of condolence and comfort.
Yeah. It takes a little. It does take a little while, but eventually she will begin to return. You go through some simple niceties. You know, sorry to hear about what happened. Isn't that awful? Things of that nature. And then she's kind of together enough to inquire. Did you? Dr. Parsons came by earlier. I understand there's others as well.
Yes. Wait, Dr. Parsons has as I'm sure he's mentioned to you, this particular sleeping illness doesn't seem to have a clear connection outside of. Well, we're not entirely sure how it's being passed around, and we're not really sure where it initially started. So we're sort of wondering whether it could have been brought in from out of town, and if you would happen to know anyone who came through before your husband got so unfortunately ill that perhaps could have brought it with them in some capacity. We're following up on potential.
I suppose
the good doctor is just so overwhelmed with care and concern for the number of people who have come down with this terrible illness. We are assisting in any way that we can.
Yes, well, it's so good that there's people to help with things. I mean, there's people coming and going all the time. I suppose I could look in my books and see if nothing comes to mind.
Would you be? I understand, madam. You have a lot to be. There is a lot you're dealing with right now. Would you be willing to allow us to have a brief look at the guest records as who came and went? Perhaps we will be able to find something from there. If it is, of course, private and you would prefer to look through it yourself, I understand. But I don't want to keep you from. I don't want to create more stress than you are already under.
Yes. No, well, I suppose it's much of a muchness, really. I haven't had a chance to update them recently. We've just been sort of
course,
rolling on. Yes, I suppose I can. Well, why don't I fetch the book and
Yes, ma'am, that would be wonderful. I couldn't help but notice the cellar hatch has come apart. Now, my household has been reduced of late, so we do have help who are not as busy as I'm sure they would like to be. It wouldn't be too forward of me if to ask perhaps if there is something, if I could send somebody over to be in your employ and help with some repairs in that regard. Our household is reduced at the moment. We just don't have enough. We don't have that much work as much work as we used to for some of our preferred members of staff and preferred handymen. And if you could perhaps give me a little bit more detail on what happened with the hatch, I'd be able to send somebody who has been in my employ over to work for you.
It's good of you. It's good of you. It really should have just been done some time ago. It was the last thing that. Well, it was. Garrick always loved a project, and this place was his love in every way. He looked to do some fixing, some improvements in the cellar, and it was. Well, he never finished it, and I suppose that it should be done. It's just that. Oh, I'm not sure it makes any sense, and I'm sorry for being so silly, but it feels almost as though it. I just don't think I could resolve it yet. I feel like, as difficult as it is to step around, it still feels like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Was he working on it when he fell ill?
It was the last thing he worked on it through the days, went to sleep and. Well, he went to sleep and he never woke up. She erupts back into tears.
Again, the same thing, and very much I will clock with you, Emma. Like, yes, I've got it, but also this is probably not like to push her on it is not going to be helpful. So
not going to push her anymore. I would just say I would look into sending some of my, perhaps sending a staff member.
I think I understand, Ms. Copeland. If an unfinished project allows one the faintest of hope, no matter what the circumstance, that perhaps the person who started it might come back and finish it. I understand that very much. And if you wish to hold that, then, well, it would be remiss of me to suggest that that is a fanciful thing to do. You are not a silly woman, you are a grieving woman, and we all do so in our own way. If, however, it would be helpful to have that at least temporarily covered, maybe not entirely fixed, but covered so that you may move around it with ease, then please let either myself or Miss Wentworth here know, and we would be more than happy to provide labor. The church does have small tithings for these kind of situations to help folks of the town, so it is absolutely nothing that you would need owe anyone about. We are happy to help.
Bless you, Reverend. Bless you. The hatch should be closed at least. It's not fair that the girls are falling over it as they try and tend to the work I can't do. If it wouldn't be too much of an ask, if it wouldn't be so terrible to... The hatch, as I understand it, is in the cellar. It needs only be reinstalled. Perhaps then at least we can come and go from the thing without, well, risking someone else falling down and breaking a leg.
We will ensure that a man is sent over with instructions to retrieve the hatch and reinstall it as it was. But of course, do not worry yourself about any associated costs. The church will be happy to cover this. For people in need.
It's good of you.
Are part of what we're here for. It would be very remiss of a church not to help the people that so kindly provide the tithes.
It's good of you, Reverend, and especially I never made my way to Bungford, but I always heard good things of you, and, well, after all the... It's nothing. I'll find the accounts, and if you wish, you could study them. I really must get back to work. I'm afraid it's... Well, things roll forward, and one must put on a brave face for, well, the girls working and the people attending, and... well done.
If I may say, madam, you are doing an excellent job given the situation, and I felt nothing but the warm glow of welcome be entered from yourself and your staff.
Yes.
Your establishment is very fine, and I only wish to see that it blossom once more. After we have been able to move on from such circumstances.
It's kind of you to say. It was always Garrick's pride, and it's one of... Well, it's stood as long as Tarryford, and if it need be my charge, then it'll stand longer since. I'll have Sarah bring the book, and if you wouldn't mind reading it in private, just so that, well, not the sort of thing I like to bandy about. I'll just have the any labourer you send, just have them ask after the seller's work, and I'll know it's... Yes, I really must get back to work. And she'll move to depart.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Copeland, and God bless you.
She vanishes back out. And if you wish it, shortly after, one of the serving girls can bring through the ledgers. She makes the same apology that the most recent dates, basically since Garrick fell ill, which is the last 2 weeks, have been less than reliably filled in.
We're looking before that.
Yeah, we're kind of looking for the time.
We're kind of looking.
Ill, so.
Yeah, we're kind of looking for that day and prior.
So here's the thing.
And these ledgers wouldn't happen to be, are these just the ledgers of people who have stayed at the inn, or does it also contain other documents
to do with... It's also sales, yeah, and things like that.
Yeah, but does it have other documents like, say, plans of the building or anything like that? No.
Probably not directly here, but I tell you, here's the thing. What I mostly want here is actually an accounting roll to go through these details and draw that. You can give me a language English roll. It's really more numbers, actually. You take a quick look, and genuinely, I think you go, this is going to need to be looked at by Mr. Otterton or someone else. This is...
I mean, I can take a stab at it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I have a holding. My accounting is 25.
Oh,
so
hey, I stand corrected. Nice. Reference. Well, in that case, with some skill in it, I will give you some...
Nice.
Absolutely. Go ahead and give you an accounting roll. And even on a failure, you will get some information because you have the knack of it, at least.
I do not succeed in the detail because this is accounts held by someone else, but I do understand a ledger.
Yes, you understand right, and you see some of the information contained within. So even on a failure, you can see that it contains it notes the people that are staying here. There are a number of people coming and going. There is one room that has been let out for the duration, and there is a name sign next to it of just Mr. Black. No more detail beyond that. You also can see that this lodges the comings and goings of people that drink here. There's no map of the tavern, but it's not a big place. There may be plans elsewhere. This has genuinely been around for ages. It's the sort of place that's been refurbished, re-updated. You are a little bit reminded of the North State in something that has been here for a long time and gone through different iterations.
Once we've looked at the recent entries right before the tavern keeper fell ill, can I flick back to the oldest records in the book? Like as far back as the ones that we've been given go?
This is probably one of a number of ledgers, and you can go back. This would be like one of a number that Alice Copeland has filled out. There's probably previous ones from before then. You can go back to the beginning. It would be, I don't know how long a ledger would last, 15 years old or something like that.
It's a big fat
Yeah,
lad.
it's a really big one. Yeah, that's right. And it also, she's quite fastidious with her taking.
Yeah.
At the end of each day, it would tally like it wouldn't be like this person bought one drink and one thing. It would be a general thing.
Their accounts,
and then
it's like the tabs and credits and that sort of thing.
Tabs is what it is. So we'll get regulars and things like that. So it's quite big.
What I'm looking for is larger numbers or the name Northlake.
Okay.
I'm looking for Northlake and I'm looking for larger numbers.
The thing that I would like to just on top of that, this Mr. Black, how long has he been in town?
A few months.
Do we have like a specific like is there a date attached to when
3 months.
When he first appears? Yeah, 3 months.
Yeah, you'd have a date there. What are we in September? That bit. Very backward.
So after our last little adventure before this one started, yeah.
July.
So it's
June.
So just specifically because he's the only person who's let the room for the last little while.
And he's been
just
staying here. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other information about this gentleman outside of
he's got a tab running up?
Just
it's not massive, but it's definitely right. Yeah, food and drink. And he is not square. A person, this is kind of operates a bit on, it's not the full nobility thing, but he'll probably only be, he has been asked to pay once or settle up a portion of it. He has done so without issue. They've now just let it lie. They're like, he can pay it when he needs to.
Okay.
It's not a massive tab. It's like, for a laborer, it'd be probably reasonably similar, but for people of your wealth.
Insignificant, yeah.
Yeah, and then similar to what Emma's suggesting, looking for the names Northlake, anything of that kind.
Or any interestingly large tabs and.
For the period that you have it, I tell you, this is really an accounting role, which we've the role has done.
Kind of tried.
It is a big role. You could push this at this point. The one that comes to mind is basically absconding with the document. Otherwise, I guess, and probably what you're doing is risking a reputation hit here, on the push roll.
I think perhaps it might be worth.
Can I ask? Can I just ask her if we can take it with us?
I was alternatively, if we could just come back tomorrow with the accountant. I'm kind of I'm happy to sort of come back.
There's
because
definitely
I suspect she will want to keep records.
There's absolutely no issue.
Actually, I think we'd come back with the accountant, because also I would like to come back with some potential laborers. Because genuinely, my estate is smaller than it once was. My parents are overseas. My sister is not here anymore. So we do have not as much activity as at the home, and there are definitely laborers who'd be put out by that. So I would like to be thinking in my mind who are the ideally bachelors among them.
Immediate matchmaking.
Yeah, I'm just, it's what we do.
Yeah, 100%. You'd probably have contacts in Tarryford.
Like in my head, I'm just like, oh, get in touch with these guys. And
no one even don't like sleeping.
I want in that cellar, to be clear.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So coming back tomorrow suits me just fine.
No roll needed for basically saying we'll come back tomorrow with laborers and we might bring some friends to look into it. That's easily done. Basically, she's kind of back in work mode a little bit, and you kind of get a very stiff, like, yes, not an issue. Enjoy your evening.
See you tomorrow, yeah.
We'll come by tomorrow with additional assistance.
No worries.
I know we asked the serving, Sarah, I think it was, to bring like wine for the lady, but technically that is stock that was requested by a customer, so I would like to leave some like a payment for that as a thank, and also just kind of to give a bit more of like credence if anyone's listening in, to say thank you very much for the wine.
You know what? And then we'll hang out and have a glass or two.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I suspect we're looking over documents and things, having wine, just like in that little back private area, and then leave payment for that on the table there, and then head out.
100%. Okay. Well, with that in mind, then this is where we will leave the scenario for this session, as following an interview with Alice Copeland and some, suggestions of discovery, Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth depart back out into the now finally cooling evening air to resolve their day, while elsewhere, Miss Radcliffe and Mr. Potterton, somewhat more shocked by their turn of events, also depart one of the building of Mr. and Mrs. Pilling's Labour and Laundry to take in the night. We will resume next session. Yes.
Yay.
Can't wait.
I do not need it now, but if there is a moment to ask Mrs. Copeland just very quickly of the description of what Mr. Black looks like, as he seems to be spending some time in town, and perhaps it would be worthwhile making his acquaintance. That's the last thing.
Of course, and she can refer you to the gentleman in the corner who you received the rather threatening from.
Oh, of course it was.
There's Mr. Black.
All right, that's all. That's mostly what I needed, was just like, is that man this man? Yes, good.
And that it is. All right, fantastic. Okay, that is going to be session 2 of the Emptiness Within. We will leave our session there, and we do hope we will see you all next week as we continue the scenario. Thank you so much for joining, and see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dave.